Okay, we are live, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Good afternoon. During the declared emergency, Committee of Adjustment virtual public hearings are being conducted by electronic means through WebEx, an online digital platform, and streamed on the Toronto City Planning YouTube channel. These measures are necessary to comply with physical distancing requirements and a provincial order that limits attendance at public gatherings. This will be a virtual public hearing, and participants who have registered in advance will be able to make their presentations to the committee using WebEx, an online event that is being moderated by city staff. Anyone wishing to view the hearing may do so by watching on YouTube. Participants who have registered in advance will be connecting either by their computer, a phone or tablet app, or by telephone. All participants will automatically be muted on entry. When your item is called, each participant will be unmuted by the moderator, one person at a time. Only the committee members will be participating by video. Actually, we're four members here today. Two of us are here live, Mr. Don Taylor and myself, Michael Clark, and we have two members participating virtually, Mr. Danny Bellissimo and Ms. Sophia Roddick. Any registered participants will be participated by audio only. We ask that you mute your device until you are called on to speak. Land acknowledgement. We acknowledge that the land we are meeting on is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples. We also acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit. In accordance with sections 45 and 53 of the Planning Act as amended, this meeting of the Committee of Adjustment is now, the City of Toronto is now called to order. The Committee of Adjustment considers applications for variances from the provisions of the zoning bylaw that apply to the property, provisions to extend or alter lawful non-conforming uses, and consents to sever property to create new lots. Anyone who wishes to receive a copy of the decision of the committee on an application must submit a written request for a decision by email. Please ensure that you include your name, address, and email address, because Committee of Adjustment and the TLAB will be sending notifications and appeal updates by email. If you do not agree with the decision of the committee, decisions may be appealed to the Toronto Local Appeal Body, TLAB, or in some limited circumstances to the Local Planning Appeal Tribunal, or LPAT. Appeal instructions are set out at the bottom of the decision of the committee. The hearing procedure will be as follows. We'll call each item in the order listed in the agenda, starting with item 18 and ending at item number 34 this afternoon. We go in order, as well as dealing with deferral requests, not in advance, but as we go through the agenda in order. When an application is uncontested, the agent or application will proceed with their presentation, if desired, and when the committee does not require presentation, applicants are to advise the chair should they wish to speak to the committee. The committee may ask questions and or take the matter into the committee for a decision. Each speaker, including the agent or applicant, is given a maximum of 5 minutes to address the committee, and I will comment when you're approaching the 5-minute mark. When addressing the committee, please start off by clearly stating your name and address for the record, and please remember to confine your remarks to the matters outlined in the application. The applicant or agent proceeds first and makes a presentation to the committee of the application if required. Please note that the committee may not entertain revisions to proposals at the hearing today. The committee may decide to defer the application if it's being substantially revised in order to ensure that the revised application is both accurate and that all those entitled to notice of the application are informed of the changes. Then individuals either in support or opposed to the application will be invited to speak, again, for 5-minute maximum, and committee members may ask questions of each speaker after they finish their presentation. And when all speakers are finished, the applicant or agent is given an opportunity to rebut only those issues that are raised by the speakers, not to introduce new evidence or facts, and that will then mark the end of the discussion. The applicant is then taken into committee for a decision. Does anyone have any declarations of interest, panel or staff, to declare on this afternoon's items before us? None to declare? Okay. And in that case, we can start hearing the applications. The first application is item number 18, 90 Raven Road. And just introduce it here for a second. I believe we have two speakers, the owner, Mary Howell, as well as the neighbor at 92, John Borrelli. And this is an application to construct one-story front and rear additions and a new covered front porch. And there's only one variance, being coverage from 30 to 35%. And we have no communication from city departments or from area neighbors, other than the next door neighbor who did not believe right into us, but is here to speak to the matter. So Mary Howell, the applicant. Good afternoon.
Yes, hi. My husband is here as well. It's Mark, and he'll be speaking. We'll start.
Good afternoon, everyone. Essentially, what we want to do is to, as the application indicates, extend the home from and take back part of the porch that's at the front of the home in order to create some more living space within the home, and as well as take back the side patio area, which is immediately behind the garage, to create a mudroom that would be connected to the garage and to the existing home as well.
Okay, so we see that on the plans, and we see as well that you only have the one variance for lot coverage. So whatever you're doing, it's not triggering any other variances for coverage or for, you do have coverage, but other than coverage, you don't have height, you don't have length, you don't have depth, side yard setbacks. So why don't we hear from the neighbor who's weighed in at 92, hear what their concerns are, and you'll have a chance to respond. I don't think we need to hear any more from you at this point. Like I said, none of the city departments, planning, transportation, et cetera, no one's weighed in with any concerns or comments. So if that's okay with you, we'll go over to Mr. Borrelli and hear what his concerns are, and you'll have a chance to respond. Mr. Borrelli?
Hi, good afternoon. I'm John Borrelli. Hi, Mark. Hi, Mary.
Hello there.
Hi, John.
Okay, you.
No, I don't have much concern. Like I pointed out before, my concern is mostly if, and I don't think it's applied with this planning permission right now, it's the drainage system, that's all. Due to the fact that the water, it's a lower roof, lower than a house roof, flat. So I was just concerned to see where, if the water that comes out that roof will be channeled past the point of my house, that's all.
Okay. Ms. Howell, you can respond to that, but I just wanted to point out, Mr. Borrelli, that's really not a planning concern, and issues such as drainage are dealt with through the building process and not through committee of adjustment.
I know.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they told me to make the points today, otherwise I wouldn't even bother.
Sure, that'll be put on the record.
They says, go on record for, you go on record and that's it, right? So, but again, this is my point, my concern at the moment. I know at the moment, but I mean, that I don't get water on my side of the house. That's all,
sure.
And I'm sure that will be addressed. And I was planning to talk to Mary and Mark about it.
Okay. Is there anything else? I think you
Easily
said you had another concern as well.
Well,
Sir,
minor,
hold on
I
a second,
guess,
please. Hold on, please.
Yeah.
Mr. Borrelli, did you say you had some other concern as well?
Yeah, no, just to point something out, which I don't see obviously at the moment, is the vent, because they're going to build a little bathroom, I guess, and it will be vented eventually. I would imagine that by code, the vent will be higher to the, it's going to be vent beyond the roof line. That's all, because this roof, the future roof that's going to be done on this expansion, it's a flat roof and it's below the soffit of the existing line of the house, right?
Yeah. Okay, so let's have Ms. Howell just respond to that briefly, but like I said, that's not a planning issue. It sounds like on the planning issues, you're okay with this.
Yeah, I'm fine, I guess, yeah.
Okay, so like issues like the washroom vent and the drainage are dealt with through the building. But good that you put that on the record.
Okay.
Ms. Howell, would you like to respond? And
So based on the information that we've received through the architect and the contractors we've consulted, the drainage will be attached to the existing and it will be addressed to tie in. So we're having a flat roof and the current roof line will be, the flat roof will be below, but we'll have adequate drainage to go through to the back. And I think as my understanding would be, it would be something that would essentially be put onto even the grass area and away from the neighbors, which it doesn't encumber now, and it wouldn't be part of our plan to encumber on their space anyway going forward. And with respect to the venting, not only for code, but also for safety, obviously we want that new washroom vented adequately. So I'm glad John brought that up, and we'll address it with our contractors.
Okay, thank you. And I assume that's Mark Howell, not Mary. You're
Yes, it is. Yes.
Sorry,
Yeah,
just
I've
wanna
changed
identify
my
that
voice.
you're speaking. Okay.
sorry, I
committee-
apologize.
No problem. So committee members, anyone have any questions either for the Howells or the applicants or for the neighbor? Or is someone ready to make a motion?
I'm prepared to make a motion. I find that the variance application meets the 4 tests of the Planning Act and make a motion to approve the variance request.
Thank you, Ms. Reddick. Seconder for that motion?
Danny Bellissimo seconds the motion.
Okay, all in favor? Okay, you have unanimous approval. Thank you, Ms. Howell, and thank you to Mr. Borrelli for weighing in with those concerns.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Okay, our next application is item number 19, 1354 Lawrence Avenue West. This is an application to construct a new detached garage in the rear yard with a rooftop deck. We only have one speaker, the agent, Marco Vieira. And on this application, for the new detached garage with a roof deck above, there's 5 variances. We have a presentation from the applicant with photos and renderings, and transportation advises they have no objection. And we have no letters of opposition from neighbors or anything like that. Mr. Vieira.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. I can give you a brief presentation if you like.
I don't think that's necessary. I think we've all reviewed the presentation materials that you've provided. And
Okay.
very straightforward. Let's just see if someone has any questions for you.
Mr. Chairman, I just got a message from my colleague Adam, who's monitoring the YouTube. YouTube is still up, but it's a little bit hard to hear you. If you can move the microphone closer to you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Vieira, is there anything you'd like to add, or let's just see if someone has any questions?
No, if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Okay, if no one has any questions, is someone ready to bring a motion?
Mr. Chair, I find the requested variances satisfy the 4 tests under the Planning Act, and I move for approval.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. Seconder for that.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Ms. Roddick. All in favor? Unanimous approval. Thank you, Mr. Vieira.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. Have a good afternoon.
Next application is item 2023 Finchley Road. And we have only one speaker, Mike De Oliveira.
Hi,
Agent.
yes,
Just let me introduce. This is an application to construct a partial second-story addition above the existing dwelling. And we have 6 letters of support. There is only one variance, being the floor space index. Mr. De Oliveira?
Hi, yes, my name is Mike De Oliveira. I'm here representing 23 Finchley Road, and I'm with Replacement Design located at 911 Davenport Road.
Okay, thank you. Committee members, unless I don't think we need a presentation on this. There's one variance for this attached garage. Sorry. Oh, sorry, it's a partial second-story addition above the existing dwelling. Only one variance, and there's 6 letters of support. Does anyone have any questions for the agent? If not, is anyone ready to weigh in with a motion?
Danny
Unless
Bellissimo.
Mr. De Oliveira, you have anything to add, let us know.
No, I believe our application is pretty straightforward here. The variance we're asking for is fairly minor. The existing GFA is already at 0.528, and we're asking for 0.54. As you can see on the drawings, it's a very small addition. It's only that one corner on the second floor that's above the existing one-story. So we don't have any other variances except for the GFA, which, as I mentioned, is already slightly over. It's a very minor change from existing to the proposed.
Okay, thank you.
I'd like to make a motion.
Okay.
Find that this satisfies the four tests of the Planning Act as minor in nature. Move approval. The variances.
Bellissimo. I don't think there are any conditions. Seconder for Mr. Bellissimo's motion.
I'll second that motion.
Thank you, Ms. Reddick. All in favor? Unanimous approval.
Thank you very much. Have a good day.
Thank you. Okay, item number 21 is 25 Edge Hill Road. It's an application for a new detached dwelling with an attached garage. There is, again, only one variance, flat roof height. Community planning is asking that it be built substantially in accordance with the front elevation in the event of an approval. And we have the neighbor 27 Edgehill in support. And we have the speaker is just the agent, not just the agent, but the agent Joe Dome. No other neighbors and no other input. Planning department, as I said, is asking in the event of an approval to be built substantially in accordance. Mr. Dome, welcome.
Hi. Would you like me to do a short presentation?
I don't think that's necessary unless there's something you'd like to point out or add. You can certainly do so.
Well, I would just like to add that there is precedent on the street for flat roof height that has been approved. For example, in 2015, 38 Edgehill was approved for 9.8 meter height, and they had 5 other variances, and 7 Edgehill Road as well, 11.88 meters with 11 other variances in 2016. And as basically as referred to in the planning staff report, that the 8.98 meter height only pertains to a portion of the dwelling toward the middle that includes the raised atrium window, and it's set back significantly from the sides. And whereas the remainder of the dwelling is 6.91 meters.
Which is, I guess, why they want to tie to the plan, so you don't do that across the whole roof. So
Exactly.
here to do that. And as you pointed out, it's your only variance. So kudos to you with building a new house with only one variance. As you said, some of the others had 11 and 7 and 10, so to come in with only
That's
one
right.
variance is laudable, I guess. Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Dome, or is someone ready to bring a motion?
I'm ready to make a motion, Danny Bellissimo.
Okay. Oh, and I also see there's urban forestry 1 and 2 on this one, so I didn't point out.
Yes, my motion, I find that the proposal satisfies the 4 tests of the Planning Act, and I move approval conditional on forestry.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Bellissimo. Someone ready to second that motion?
I would second with a friendly amendment that the planning department condition be imposed on the approval. The proposed development shall be constructed substantially in accordance with the front elevation submitted on October 27, 2020, and held on file by the Committee of Adjustment.
Okay.
I agree with that friendly amendment. Sorry for forgetting that.
Okay. So all in favor? Unanimous approval. Thank you, Mr. Dome.
Thank you.
Okay, item number 22 is 332 RENFORTH Drive. It's an application for another new detached dwelling with an attached garage. There are 7 variances. Planning has advised that the applicant, and we have also revised plans. Hold on. Oh no, planning is requesting that the plans that be modified, there be modified approval for several of the variances. I'm not sure, we'll have to hear if those have been incorporated or not into plans. Transportation has conditions of approval. We have 4 letters of opposition. And another joint letter from several of the neighbors weighing in together. And we have the planning conditions, correct, and the transportation. So we have a lot of speakers registered to speak on this one. We have the agent, Nadim Irfan, as well as we have neighbors at 330 Renforth, 334 Renforth Drive, 328 Renforth Drive, 336, and 11 Tranquil Drive. So let's first go to the agent, Mr. Irfan.
Mr. Chair, my name is Nadim Irfan, 10 Milner Business Court, Suite 710, Toronto, Ontario. The application has been significantly revised, although not submitted because we need perhaps the revised zoning notice. But we'll see if committee can, review the variances and perhaps consider for approval. Most of the variances, three of the variances are as a result of the way the zoning examiner is reading this application. The lot coverage, one of it is the lot coverage. They are considering the rear deck, concrete deck as a part of the coverage. Other than that, if we look at the footprint of the house, the coverage meets the zoning bylaw requirement. Actually, it's about 32% instead of 33%. Same as about the building length, they are considering the rear concrete deck as a part of the length. Otherwise, the building length is actually 14.33. And same is the case with the rear yard setback. If we look at the rear yard setback to the building, it's 11.5, which exceeds the zoning bylaw requirement. They are reading the rear yard setback at 8.51. We have worked with the community planning and we agreed to reduce the proposed FSI from 0.63 to 0.59. As a result of that, the footprint will reduce, the coverage will reduce, the side yard will improve, and the rear yard will improve. I just wanted to mention to the committee member that there is no height variance other than just the wall height. And we can also eliminate the variance number 7, which is for the driveway width. Okay. So we can amend 2 variances. One is for the FSI, yep, and eliminate 1, which is 7, for the driveway width.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Irfan. Can you let us know in variance 2 what the revised at 0.59, how many square meters that is?
It will reduce from 354 to 330 square meters. So it will be approximately 24 to 25 square meter will be reduced.
Okay, so but it's 330 even, because I see it's from 354.6 to...
Yes, it's 330.71.
Okay, I think we just need the 7, not the 1. 1 decimal place?
Yes.
Okay, thank you for explaining that. Committee members, any questions for the agent before we go on to the neighbors? And I don't know, sir, are the neighbors aware of these changes? And are these changes been incorporated? Has that been incorporated?
No, sir. We didn't have enough time to go back and get a revised zoning notice for the circulation. But community planning is satisfied. That's why they wrote the memo that they are in favor of the application, or they have no concerns.
Okay, but my question is then, by reducing that, do any of the other variances change, like the coverage?
It will be reduced.
What will be reduced, and can we reduce it, or you just
the lot coverage in proportion to whatever the FSI has been reduced? Yeah. It will reduce. It will improve, but at this point, we don't know the exact number.
I see. So even though you're taking off,
we have done an exercise. We have done an exercise with the community planning. The building from the back was reduced about 2 feet, and from the side approximately 18 inches, which improved the rear yard setback, reduced the coverage, improved the side yard setbacks, perhaps exceed the requirement of the zoning bylaw, which is 1.5 meter.
Okay, so by going from 0.63 to 0.59, you tell me it's about 24 square meters coming off, but you don't want to take that
Yes,
exactly right now off the coverage and leave it like it is for
that's right.
staff. Is that permissible, Mr. Carvalino? Right, so we'll just have the number, but we won't. Okay, okay. So thank you, Mr. Orphan, for explaining that. You're going to eliminate variance number 7, reduce variance number 1. Sorry, variance number 2.
So
let's
number
hear,
2.
Yeah, so let's hear from the neighbors. They still have concerns. I assume you've read some of the letters from
Yes,
the neighbors on RENFORTH and on great name street Tranquil Drive. Great name for a street of people who want peace and quiet. So let's hear from
yes,
the
Mr. Chair.
neighbors and see if they have concerns. I don't know. So the first neighbor we're going to hear from is right next door, 330 RENFORTH. Either Mr.
It's going to be
Puskas or Ms. Filipescu.
Mr. Chairman. It's going to be Sabina Filipescu speaking.
Filipescu. Okay. Ms. Filipescu, welcome.
Yeah, hi there. Thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Thank you. So we are the property directly adjacent to the application in question, and we do have a shared driveway situation with them. We are also speaking on behalf of all the other adjacent neighbors, so the joint signed letter that is attached to the file, as well as sharing some individual concerns. So firstly, we did see the kind of proposal for revised FSI of 0.59, but our concerns remain. The current property and the property owners, while we support the renewal and improvement of the neighborhood, and we're more than willing to work with the community and our neighbors to meet that common goal of improving the community, this is not something that's been happening with the next door neighbor. We got no notice of the project. We've got no notice, no direct conversations on the project. And furthermore, there's been nothing done on the part of the current owner to be part of the community and to maintain the existing property to the bylaw standards already in place. The current property is used as a rooming house with upwards of 12 people living there at a time from multiple households, which I believe is not in line with the current specified use of the zoning bylaws. Also, there's an extreme lack of maintenance on the property. There have been several enforcement actions on the part of the city, serving the owners with notices around garbage, property in disrepair, dead tree removal due to unsafe conditions. So many calls to action to the owner have gone unaddressed, and the city has had to be involved. These concerns are further exacerbated as there may not be good faith moving forward with the construction project and getting any concerns that may actually be. In terms of the shared community concerns that we brought forward with the joint letter, so as you've just pointed out, there are 7 variances on this proposal, which are more significant than many other proposals that have come before the committee, even today from what I've been hearing. That may not be in alignment with the master plan of the Etobicoke Center community. The variance 1, the lot coverage, and variance 2 of floor space index, they are significant in our opinion, given the existing conditions of the type of multiplex type or rooming house dwelling that's in there. The new construction may pose additional disruption to garbage storage, collection, parking, noise levels, transportation, like getting the cars in and out of the driveway safely. And regarding the maximum permitted floor space index and the calculations that were made, so as you would see from the plans, there are 4 bedrooms on the 2nd level with ensuite bathrooms, which is uncommon. There's a 4-piece bathroom on the main floor, which is also an indication potentially of rental and or rooming house. 1,300 square feet of livable space in the basement with 9-foot ceilings with 2 full washrooms in the basement and 3 separate access points into the basement specifically. And the concrete pad that the individual, that the agent just mentioned, it does have a foundation underneath for the 9-foot basement space beneath. So it is really part of the foundation, the concrete pad. Also, the plans do propose an increase from the 1.2 meter allowance on the sides of the house to 1.5. That might be an indication, again, of allowing for proper egress of renters into the basement in the event of an emergency. So again, the issue of this potentially becoming a commercial rental multiplex type property in the future. Regarding the variance number 4, the setback from the property rear yard line, we do have several mature trees on the property. I know that the tree department of the city has reviewed this and has no major concerns, but we do feel that the trees may not be respected and could be damaged. So ensuring that those right permits are in place would be really important if this were to go ahead. And we do have some individual concerns and questions for the agent at this point that I'm not sure that we want to go through them one by one, or how you would like to approach that.
Well, you've made a presentation. I thought if you're wrapping up, you have other points to bring up, because you're direct the points towards us. If they deal with construction or drainage, they wouldn't be discussed here. They would be discussed at a later point through the building code issues if this gets approved. So it sounds like the neighbors, notwithstanding the reduction to 0.59, which seems to have satisfied city staff, that you have concerns. The concerns, which we've read, dealing with the current use of the property and the unkempt position and things of that nature, you would, hope that with a new home that would end, but you have suspicions that this would continue to be a
multiplex commercial style rental.
They can certainly do, but they're coming in and approaching this as a new detached dwelling for a single family. They're not asking for a duplex or a triplex or a rooming house or anything like that. So we can hear from him in response. So I take it, I saw we had individual letters, and then we had this kind of combined letter from you and all the other neighbors. So you're speaking. Are the other neighbors still going to speak, or are you speaking on their behalf?
Yes, I believe 11 Tranquil and 334 RENFORTH are also on the line. I'm not sure about 328 RENFORTH.
Okay.
So my last comment in closing would be about how the FSI was calculated and why is the basement square footage not included in the calculation, seeing that the floor slab is only 1.3 meters below average grade. That's my last question in closing.
Yeah, I guess that's based on the zoning review, if it was a certain out of the ground or down below the ground, whether it counts or not. Because you're saying that this number did not count the basement, and you're questioning why the basement perhaps should have been counted.
That's right, yeah.
9-foot ceiling basement, and you're saying it's more out of the ground than it is in underground?
It's more above ground than it is underground,
Okay,
and it
so
is
we can hear from the
approximately
agent on
13. Yeah.
And you're saying that that has not been counted in the calculation of the 0.59 or the 0.63?
That's correct.
It would be a lot higher.
Yes.
Okay.
0.85 according to our rough calculations, but we are not experts in this by any
So we'll
means.
have the agent can reply to that in his response. So let's see if committee members have any questions for you before we move on to the next speaker.
Danny Bellissimo has a quick question for clarification. Did you say that this is presently being used as a rooming house? And do they have a license for a rooming house, or is it an illegal rooming house?
I'm describing it as a rooming house only in that there's 10 to 12 individual adults that are not related living in the house, and it's temporary housing basically. Month to month things can change. There's upwards of 6 cars parked in the driveway. At all times we have sent photos to the file in this application to show.
So it sounds from what you're saying is being used as a rooming house, obviously that number of unrelated people, but they do not have a license as a rooming house from the city of Toronto.
I have not to our knowledge, no.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions to this speaker? And if not, we'll move on to the next speaker, who according to my list would be Felix Martinez of 334 RENFORTH, the neighbor on the other side from the neighbor at 330. So this is the other direct neighbor beside. Is Felicita there?
Yes, sir. Yes, I
Hey.
am here, and
Welcome.
I am quite concerned about, hello?
Yes, go ahead.
Yes, I am at 334 RENFORTH Drive, which is the neighbor on the north side. I do believe that this is a rental. It's always been a rental. I have been living in my neighborhood for about 6 years, and it's always been a rental since these owners bought the house. I have been having quite a lot of concerns about the building that they are planning in building.
Yes.
It's going to be huge in comparison with the city bylaws. That's my main concern.
Okay, so you think it's too large compared to the other houses? So what they're proposing, you're saying is too large?
Pardon me?
You're saying that what they're proposing is too large?
Excuse me. I'm having some issues here with the internet connection because I am out of Canada. I cannot hear you very well.
Okay, so your concern is that you think it's too big, what they're proposing to build?
Exactly.
Okay. Anything else? We do have the letter that your other neighbor put together for all of you.
My understanding is that this is always going to continue to be property.
You want to repeat that, ma'am? We didn't hear that. Ms. Martinez? I don't know where she's calling from.
Hello?
Yes. Okay, at least she was able to tell us her concern.
Not at the moment. I'm having problem with the internet connection. I'm sorry.
Okay, so you've told me that it's too large, and your position has also been reflected by your neighbor's letter on behalf of all of you, correct? So I think
Yes, I sent it. Yes, and I also signed the joint letter.
Yes, yes, very good. Okay, does anyone have any questions for this speaker? Okay, so if not, we'll move on to the next speaker, Anna Delgasheva of 11 Tranquil Drive.
Yes, hello. I am Anna Delgasheva, and our backyards with the proposed building is back to back. So we're a family of 4 little kids, and 2 of them are diagnosed with severe mental disabilities. They are very sensitive to noise, even like in the shower, or even if I read the story a bit louder, my daughter would close her ears. So for us, construction noise is a major concern. And when my daughter is upset, it doesn't mean that she will cry for 5 minutes. She will cry from morning till night, and I had that. So I'm really hoping that that construction will not proceed, because it will be a distress for my children, especially for my daughter, and it will affect the well-being and health of all my family. Because when I cannot console my daughter, like, we are all really depressed. Again, yeah. So, and with the construction, like, even if I know what the reason is and I can fix it, I will do it right away. But with the construction noise, I cannot do anything. So, so that's the major thing. Another thing is that right now, in the midst of pandemic, we only practically go to the backyard, and we rely on it as a only safe place for us to go. And if there is construction, we will have noise again, and dust and dirt and lack of privacy. So we will be forced to go somewhere else and be exposed to COVID-19. That's another issue. And again, all those major concerns for us, what it's for, just to get another rental buildings nearby to have even more people living in that building. And we are working from home, and kids, like 3 school kids, using internet to study at school. And if there is noise and I have to make a phone call or have an online meeting with my boss, and I say, oh, I cannot talk to you right now because there is a construction nearby. So it really affects, it will really affect my family, my work, and the health of my children. So we really hope and ask you for your help to not approve the construction next door.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. We got, we don't deal with the construction issue. We realize that everyone has issues when there's living on a street or in a community where there's lots of construction, a lot of new homes being built, homes being renovated. It's a big part of the Toronto economy. And while your concerns are valid, that we can't really address that type of thing. We can address built form issues like the neighbors, and you've joined in the letters with the other neighbors about saying it's too big or it's too this or it's too long or it's too high. But an issue to say that, I have a special need child who's going to be disturbed by the construction, well, I have a lot of sympathy. There's nothing we can really do to say, well, in that case, your neighbors can't build. It's a tough situation. But let's see if committee members have any questions for you, and if not, we'll have to move on to the next speaker. Any questions for Ms. Delgado? No? Okay, the next speaker is Peter Mahoot of 32028. I think Ms. Filipescu said she's not sure if the other two speakers are going to speak, but they're on the list. Mr. Mahoot?
I'm here. Can you hear
Okay.
me okay?
Yes, we can hear you perfectly, sir.
So my concerns are, I have two concerns. One is the 0.63 number. That's a very large house.
Sir, it's been reduced to 0.59. Just to let you know,
Yeah.
he's agreed to reduce
What-
that to
and-
0.59.
Right, and what is the bylaw amount?
Is it 4, I think?
0.45.
0.45. Thank you, Mr.
Right, so at 0.59, I think it's still approaching something like 30% increase. Is that about right? Something like that?
Something like that.
So, yeah, so that's a very significant increase in my mind. I think the house is oversized for the neighborhood and for the lot. Those are pretty small lots. So it's just packing extra square footage for, I don't know what reason. And then also the second thing that really concerns me is the current use and the likely future use, especially considering the bedroom and bathroom layouts in that building. I really think that the owner is going to continue with the use that he's using it for right now. So it's packed full of I don't know who they are, but there must be some relationship between who's in the building and the owner. The driveway is jam-packed full of cars all the time. When the kids, because it's all young adults, when they get to partying in the backyard, it's pretty loud. So those are my concerns.
Okay, thank you, sir. I appreciate that. Yeah, we've heard from the other neighbors about the current use, and the current use is the current use, but you're all advising that based on the layouts and the basement and and the various entry points, that this is going to be continued to use for some purpose other than single family, which has not been disclosed. Yeah.
I'm convinced of that.
Okay. Okay, thank you, sir. Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Mahoot before we move on to the next speaker? And we'll be asking, obviously, the agent to respond to all of these allegations and concerns. So if there's no other concerns, we're going over to 336.
Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry to interrupt. The people at 336 RENFORTH Drive are not on the call.
Okay, that's fine. We've heard from enough neighbors, and like I said, Miss Filipescu has sort of represented them all in that joint letter, so I'm satisfied with that. So go back to Nadim Irfan, the agent. Sir, you have an opportunity to respond to.
Yes, Mr. Chair. We got these letters at the beginning of I think the January, and there was not enough time for us to go and speak to the neighbors to address their concerns. But however, I know one of the owner, he reached out to a few of the community members and tried to explain their situation. They are also victim of the situation. They rented out to some people who were actually not good tenant. They did not pay my client for last 1 year, and they left it in a mess. Right now, I've been informed that from January 1st, there are new tenants, they're reasonable people, And until, this project moves forward, there will be the tenant, they'll be respectful of the neighbors, current concerns. And we hope that until, the construction begins, everything remains, calm and tidy. As of the roaming houses or the multi-tenant, I'm not sure about that, but definitely going forward, the zoning bylaw requires the zoning examiner will demand a letter signed by the owner that this is going to be a single family dwelling and will not be rented, not until they actually legally apply for a second dwelling, which perhaps, if I know correctly, there is probably 5 years until the house is old, then they can apply for the legal basement apartment.
So,
and now,
okay.
yeah.
First of all, you just say they've re-rented it as of January. Is that to one party? And previously, was it many parties, or it was just one person who just brought in a lot of
One
other people?
family. Okay. One party, single. I just spoke to him via text message, and he confirmed it's a single family.
Okay, so again, I don't know when he bought this property, or if he bought it for the intention of rebuilding, and it's just this tenancy was just a temporary situation, as you sometimes see before people can get their approvals. Or because
yes, sir. We have been working on this. We have been working on this file since 2017. Perhaps they were, just designing at design stage, stuck with the, other family members. So they worked very hard on these plans to carefully tailor to meet the needs of the family.
Okay, so you don't. When did they buy? Did they just buy the property like 3 years ago? They've been there a long time.
I believe maybe 2017 or 18. That's the time they
okay, does anyone else have any? So that's basically you feel that 0.59, it's just what community planning asked you to do.
I just wanted to mention there are precedent, not maybe on the immediate street, but there are precedent where 0.65 to 0.70 have been approved within the same bylaw, R2. And we reached out to the community. We shared these precedents, and perhaps from 0.63, community planning said bring it down to less than 0.6, and that's what we reduced to 0.59.
And there is urban forestry conditions 2 and 3 on this property as well. Just point out that to members. So unless you'd like to add anything else, let's see if committee members have any questions for you or any residual questions for any of the neighbors, or if someone's ready to make a motion on this application.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, the comments that we received this afternoon are very helpful. They seem to fall into 3 categories. One, the concern that it has been used and may continue to be used as I'll call it a rooming house. We don't know what the actual status is, but we don't have any purview on that issue. There are other laws and regulations and approval authorities that deal with addressing that issue should it arise. The second issue, and I have a lot of sympathy for the Anna Delgado about her daughters and the issue they have with dust and noise. And that's very truly sad and unfortunate, but we can't preclude or prevent reasonable development if it's before us. The third comment was the size of the house. It was described as way too big. I think it was called a monster home in one of the letters. When I look at the variances being requested, I don't see that. The floor space index is being reduced by about 25 square meters. That's going to have a lessening impact on the lot coverage. We don't know exactly how much yet, but it's going to be less than 37% in an area that's zoned for 33%, so that's not a significant difference. Front yard setback virtually unchanged. Rear yard setback the same, virtually unchanged. Building length the same. Soffit height the same. And the applicant has already withdrawn the variance number 7 on the driveway width. So I see this development as being very compatible with the neighborhood. The variances are in keeping with the 4 tests under the Planning Act. So I would move for approval, subject to an adjustment to variance 2, so that the floor space index is now 0.5 times the area of the lot. 0.59 times the area of the lot, bracket 330.7 meters squared, and eliminating variance 7. So I make a motion for approval, subject to urban forestry conditions 2 and 3.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. Thank you for that well-reasoned reasons for your motion. Seconder for that motion.
I'm prepared to second that motion.
Thank you. Ms. Reddick, all in favor? You have unanimous approval. Thank you, Mr. Irfan. Thank you, neighbors.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, next application is item number 23, 58 Rivalda Road, rather. This is to convert the existing front yard landscaping into parking spaces. There are 4 variances. Planning is requesting a condition that it be a limited 5-year approval, I guess, to see how it works out. And Urban Forestry is requesting a refusal. Transportation is also in a memo dated January 14th requested deferral, that this matter be deferred. And we have as registered speaker Douglas Stewart in trust. Is Mr. Stewart or there?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, welcome. So have you
Thank you very much.
Sir, have you seen there's community planning is looking to say approval should be for 5 years. I guess they want to see how it works out. And I think transportation is looking for a deferral. Is that correct? To allow the applicant opportunity to address the above noted requirement. Have you seen the transportation letter?
I got both letters yesterday, and I've spoken to all 3 departments regarding the issues.
Okay. So
can I speak to them, or do you have any questions for me, or would you like me to go
I guess
first?
I want to first know your position on the request for a deferral, whether you're agreeable to that or not. And then if not, we'll have to hear from you on the, have the committee rule on. So I think they want, I don't know what, do you know why they're asking? They just asked you this at the last minute, I take it. They're worried about site.
Yeah, unfortunately, I was only made aware of the letters yesterday. I think the main issue with all this is that what I'm doing is begging forgiveness here. It's a mea culpa that the parking lot was altered 5 years ago. And this process was started by a bylaw infraction, which passed through to the zoning department, which is now passed through to the variance department. I've been working on this literally for 5 years. The parking lot was altered to the state it currently is in, which is on the site survey plan 5 years ago, and it has been like that. I think some of the wording inside of the application has put everybody off into thinking that the front landscaping as it is was to be removed, and the tree was to be removed, and the cars would be parking directly on the road. It's not the case. It is currently what I'm asking for is a variance so that basically to try and clear off the issues with bylaw and zoning, so that the current parking lot is as it is.
Yeah, it's you're saying what's there has been there for over 5 years. I guess it's a common situation. I know Rivalda. I used to buy tires there, and I think the guy's out of business. He was pretty close by. But isn't that sort of the general look of the property, that you got parking out front?
Yeah, if you notice on the file, there's a couple of photos I sent, one directly to the property and one shows the properties around, and the vast majority of the properties have zero landscaping and parking directly onto the road, including my neighbor to the north. If you can even see in that photograph there, the neighbor to the north has cars directly on the road.
Right.
So we've maintained the landscaping in the front and the tree. And let's say it's been like this for 5 years with no issue.
Yeah.
We've done well to try and maintain the front of the building to keep it looking good, and
Yes.
we're pretty proud of our building.
Right. So what about the
I've
situation? The
been
community,
trying.
yeah. Your position on
Sorry, go
community
ahead.
planning, the community planning was saying it should be for 5 years, like a limited approval, because if there's problems and they want to come, you'll have to come back.
Yeah, I
Sometimes-
believe that was based off the issues with forestry and the issue, I think, coming from transport. So I spoke with Luigi yesterday regarding the transport issues. And we're pretty well clear on that. He's somewhat concerned with, if you see at the southeast corner of the property, just where that intersection is between, say, if somebody were to drive through the front of our lot and outwards. But again, some of the issues are somewhat rhetorical, because if you can see from the sight line of the building, we've actually opened the driveway up larger as it is now.
Yeah.
So it's actually better access to the road. And beyond that, the sight lines are better than anywhere else in the road. The only thing actually blocking the sight line is the tree.
Okay. Well,
And then,
tree, so.
right. Oh, of course, it's a city tree, and the city tree, again, the issue, I think, was the verbiage on one of the requests was for the landscaping to be completely removed, which is not the case. It's just to be kept as it is.
Yeah, I think that's probably why they were concerned. They thought you're going to remove that landscape strip, which is.
Exactly, and I had 3 conversations with, sorry, I'm trying to keep track of all the names, with the tree department, Max Dita, regarding the fact that the tree is there, that there will be no changes to the tree. There will be no changes to the front property at all. The tree has been protected when the work was done back in 2016, and it's been protected ever since, and it's healthy and thriving.
Okay.
So the request for deferral, I think, is just to try and clarify those points with those departments, but I already have verbal, I just haven't done it in writing.
I got it. Okay. So, but to the other point, the 5-year issue is not a concern to you. It means you'll have to reapply and pay again in 5 years.
The 5 years is the one I haven't had a chance to get a direct answer back from the department. It doesn't really make any sense to me. Nothing is going to change in 5 years. It's either correct or not.
Right.
And the issue with is it safe or is it correct would already be answered by the fact it's been used for the last 5 years. And both my neighbors use it, to be honest with you. They both, when the mailman or the postal service comes, UPS, anybody else, they all drive through our driveway.
Sure.
We have, we're an electrical contractor working in this building. We have deliveries coming and going. Our neighbor to the south is a mechanic shop. They have customers coming and going constantly all day long, and we've never had a single issue in the parking lot or on the roadway around our lot.
Okay,
And
so-
beyond that, sorry, one more quick point is that the front of our road is actually open to parking. We obviously don't want to park on the street, but certain times during the week, depending on deliveries up the road and some of the religious services around here on a Friday and different days of the week, the road is absolutely packed with cars. So any kind of issues with sight lines and stuff are really, I couldn't really see how that would be an issue either.
Okay, so the only issue for, I guess, for the committee is this 5-year thing. Sometimes you see that with restaurant patios, because they want to make sure that it's not going to be an issue with noise. And on the other flip side, sometimes, to have a time limited for a restaurant to build a patio costs a lot of money. Here, you're not going to be spending any money, but on the other hand, you don't want to have to come back on in 5 years. The committee will have to decide whether they agree to that condition, that either it works or it doesn't work. But it's not like a situation like a patio to see how the use is going to work, that they want to revisit it in the future. So I'll leave it up.
Yeah,
to the committee.
I'm kind of coming to you cap in hand. I basically just need help resolving this.
Yep.
It's kind of the way I've been operating for like last every years. So
Okay, Mr. Stewart.
if you'd
correct?
prefer I defer it and try and get
No.
something in writing from departments, I'm happy with that.
No, we don't want to, at this point, we've been listening to this for quite some time. So let's see if committee members have any questions for you. or if someone has a motion on this application based on what we have before us.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Sir, notwithstanding your commentary on the tree issue, the forestry department has indicated that they want you to complete an application for a permit to injure or remove a city-owned tree. Are you okay with an imposition of a condition like that?
I could do that. The point I made to Max and when I spoke with, probably Max Dita, when I spoke with them from that department, was the tree is not going to be injured or in any way affected because there is no construction. The parking lot is as it is, and any effect that would have happened to the tree would have happened 5 years ago. So I'm happy to fill out a permit or something, but it's kind of redundant that I've literally sent him photographs of the tree.
Did you see the photograph?
He has photographs on the file that you can see. The tree is there and is clearly undamaged and thriving.
So you don't have a condition to injure a tree. It means you can injure the tree. You don't intend on injuring the tree. They, I think, just like you said, misinterpreted what you want to do here. They thought you want to pave right to the road and take out that grassy strip where the tree is located, which you're not going to do.
Exactly. I think it's just an unfortunate misunderstanding due to the way it was written for the application, and just when they came to review it, they believed we were just wiping out the front of the grass and the tree.
Does anyone have any questions, or is someone ready to make a motion?
Yes, Mr. Chair. I find the request to be in keeping with the 4 tests under the Planning Act, and I'm going to make a motion to approve without conditions, and that means I am not including the Planning Department's recommendation for a 5-year time period. I think the applicant stated it well. It either makes sense or it doesn't. I'm satisfied that it does make sense.
And no urban forestry because he's not going to touch the tree.
Exactly.
Okay, thank you for that motion, Mr. Taylor. Do I have a seconder for that motion?
Danny Bellissimo supports the motion. Seconder.
Thank you, Mr. Bellissimo. All in favor? Okay, you have unanimous approval. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much for your time and your help. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. Okay, item number 24 is 36 ELSFIELD Road. It's an application to construct a 2-story rear addition, a 3rd-story addition above the existing dwelling, and a 3rd-story rear platform. There are 6 variances. Planning is asking that it be built substantially in accordance with the north, south, and west elevation drawings dated October 26th, and we have 2 letters of support. Registered to speak is Andrew Miskiv, agent. No other speakers, and we do have 1 letter of support. Sorry, 2 letters of support. Mr. Miskiv?
Good afternoon, committee. My name is Andrew Miskiv. I'm from Organica Studio, located at 145 Birmingham Street, Unit 7. So the extension that we're proposing, it's in keeping with the character of the house and the homes in the area. We feel that our application is pretty straightforward. We're not asking for additional height or depth or length. So I can give you a brief presentation if you'd like. Otherwise, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Yeah, okay, let's see if, so just one question I have. You're okay with the planning condition that it be tied to be built substantially in accordance with the north, south, and west elevation drawings?
Yes, I am.
Okay, and it looks like there's 2 neighbors in support, no neighbors in opposition.
Correct.
And Yeah, no urban forestry condition either. So let's see if committee members have any questions for you, unless there's something you'd like to add in addition to what you've already told us.
So I had one thing, the neighbor to the north, the one that is affected by the 0.3 setback, they're in favor of the application.
Okay, and they would be the ones most directly affected then by that variance?
Yeah.
Sure, okay.
Correct.
What about the size of the third-story rear platform? No one has any issues with that, or is it off a
No,
bedroom,
we've
or is
had
it
no.
off a, what's the purpose of that balcony, that platform?
So currently it's a family, it's a family space, so it has a small walkout to the back, and the back has quite a few trees, so the privacy won't be an issue.
Okay. So it is off a common area, because sometimes I ask if it's off a bedroom, you figure it's just for one or two people to have coffee or something, but when it gets to be larger, and if it's off a common room and it's a place where people can congregate, other than the occupants of that particular bedroom or bedrooms, that sometimes is an issue for neighbors. A couple of applications here today, it was raised, if you were listening in. But your neighbors seem to be, do other people have similar back platforms, second and third floor platforms? Maybe that's why they're...
No, so there are varying styles of houses in the area. Most are pretty old, but there are a few new ones. I believe we're one of the first to have this platform, but we are recessed within the roof line.
Okay.
So half of the patio is tucked away.
Right. Okay. Let's see if... so does anyone have any questions for Mr. Miskiv? Or is someone ready to make a motion? And we have this substantially in accordance condition, which the applicant agent has indicated he's okay with.
Danny Bellissimo would like to make a motion.
Okay.
I find that the variances are minor in nature, and I would support the variances subject to planning's condition that the proposed development shall be constructed substantially in accordance with the north elevation, south elevation, and west elevation submitted October 26, 2020, and held on file by the Committee of Adjustment.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Bellissimo. We have a seconder for Mr. Bellissimo's motion.
I'll second the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. All in favor? You have unanimous approval. Thank you.
Thank you, Committee.
Okay. Item number 25, A, B, and C, 25 Roseland Drive. Mr. Carvalino, I understand that application is being deferred. Is that an automatic deferral or something we have to do?
Through you, Mr. Chair, the application has a notice issue and it has been rescheduled. It was noted by staff and I believe the applicant's aware.
So Mr. Marchese and the neighbor at 36 are not present on the line?
That is correct.
No, I am present, Sir Chair.
Mr. Marchese, that's Mr. Marchese, right?
Okay, hello, Mr. Marchese.
Hi, how are you today?
Good, so on the record, this matter is being deferred, correct?
Yes, due to the error of a public notice, we've been in consultation with city staff. The file already has been rescheduled for the February 9th agenda, and I am just here to formally request that deferral.
Okay. And Ms. Kumar is not on the line.
Maria Kumar is on the line. I will patch her in right now. Okay.
Hello, Ms. Kumar.
Yes, hello.
I hope you've been
Hello.
enjoying your listening to the proceedings here, but it looks like
Oh,
your
yes.
application that you're waiting for is not going to be heard today because of a notification issue.
Okay.
I don't know if they've told you that already while you're waiting.
No.
Okay. Well, that's apparently Mr. Carvalino would explain what happened. There was a notification issue. The notice that went up to the public is incorrect, and as such, we can't proceed. Correct?
Through you, Mr. Chair, yes. Notice will be resent to all properties in accordance with the Act, and we are rescheduling for February the 9th.
Okay. So we'll see you back. You'll be re-notified, and we'll be here again February 9th if you'd like to weigh in at this time. In the interim, if there's issues that that the agent can address, perhaps you want to contact him and let him know, or you'll be back here on the 9th to deal with this.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. So do we need to make a formal motion or no? Okay. So we're going to have a motion to defer this matter to the February 9th hearing.
Danny Bellissimo moves to defer the application.
Thank you.
I second it.
Thank you. All in favor? Matter is deferred to the February 9th hearing. Okay, item number 26, A, B, and C. Evans Avenue.
Hello.
This is an application. We have, first of all, the agent is Eddie Perez. We have the neighbor from 83 Evans on the line as well. This is an application for consent and sever to sever the property into two undersized residential lots, and on each of the lots to build a new detached dwelling with an attached garage, as set out in the variance applications being 26B and 26C. Mr. Perez.
Hello, good afternoon, Chairman, committee members.
So you want to sever this lot, you want to have 7 variances on each of the other lots. So why don't you make us you need a little bit of a presentation here for you.
Yeah, so we're designing these two houses to sever the lot into 2 equal parcels.
Yep.
We did the drawings according to what's in the area, so it meets the 4 tests for what's in the area. We also had put it in, and then planning had a couple minor adjustments. We talked to planning. We made the adjustment that they needed to address their concerns, and now planning has no issues with our proposal. And we also submitted a revised latest notice that the zoning examiner sent us.
Okay, so we have the normal engineering conditions for severances.
Correct.
There's urban forestry conditions. And,
Correct.
We have your email and your plan. So you did eliminate, apparently the height is no longer a variance. That's why you revised your submission to remove
Yeah,
the
that's
height variance.
yeah, one of the height ones, yeah.
Okay.
But there's still one there.
Okay. Let's see if committee members have any questions for you. I know there is one neighbor to weigh in, and you'll have a chance to respond to their concerns. But does anyone have any questions for Mr. Perez at this time? Okay. If there are none, and let's hear from the neighbor, Dominique Zita, at 83 Evans. I guess that's across the street.
Okay. Thank you, Dave. Okay, let's go. We'll find somewhere else. Okay. Sherman, sorry. Yeah.
Is that Mr.
Yeah,
Zita?
so yeah, this is turned into a real nightmare right now.
Sir, we can't hear you. You really sound like you're in a tunnel. Can you there's something
The
you can
only
do?
plausible thing we have to do the only logic that came out
Mr.
of
Chairman,
the
I think
meeting
he's
today
talking
when
to
we
somebody
came
else on
into
another
this,
line.
the pipe's got to move now. That's the problem. And the question is,
that's
okay. I don't want
Mr.
that's
Dominic
pretty-
Zita?
I don't know why Lucilla thinks she's confident about it.
Okay,
I'll
let's
I'm going to
you
mute
know,
the private conversation.
So there's some way to call him and tell him to, like, how are we able to?
If we move to the next item, and in the meantime, I'll call Mr. Zita on his personal phone. That could be an option.
It's another one. It's another consent and severance. I don't want to get into that at this point. No, let's deal with 27, which is being deferred. I have an automatic deferral motion, so let's get him number 27, 5365 Dundas Street West, which is to sever into 3 mixed-use lots. And I have a note that this is an automatic deferral. Looks like
Sir, this is good afternoon. This is Michael Cara, counsel for the applicant, Concert Real Estate Corporation. Just want to speak briefly to confirm that unfortunately, as was the case with item number 25, there was an oversight during staff's issuance of notice for the purpose of today's hearing.
Right.
As such, we understand that this matter is proposed by staff to be deferred to the next available hearing date on February 9th.
Okay.
And subject to any questions that you might have for me at
Yeah.
this time, I'm purely here today to formalize that request.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Cara. Mr. Carvalino, can you just confirm?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Much like item 25, there was a notice issue with this application as well, and staff noted the issue early. and we are recommending that it be placed on the February 9th agenda.
Thank you, Mr. Carlino. Committee, can someone make a motion to that effect, please?
Mr. Chair, I'll move for deferral per the applicant's request.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. Seconder for that.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Ms. Reddick. All in favor? Unanimous approval. Thank you. We'll see you back here February the 9th.
Thank you. Have a great day.
You too.
Sounds good.
Okay, so
I tried reaching out to Dominic Zita, but it's going straight to voicemail. I can try to unmute him one more time.
One more time and see if we can get his attention.
Mr. Zita, hello?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay.
I'm here.
Mr. Zita's here.
Hello, Mr. Zita.
Yeah.
Okay, we were just in the middle of hearing this application. We heard from the applicant, and now we're going to you. This is for the A.D. Evans.
Yeah, I just wanted to come online to note that I have no objection to the application. We are located directly across the street from it at 83, and we have no objection to it.
Okay, that's wonderful. Good to hear. Okay, committee members, we've heard from Mr. Perez. Are there any follow-up questions for Mr. Perez?
Bye. Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah, I'm saying, I'm just waiting, Mr. Perez, to see if any of the members have any questions for you. Mr. Zita came on the line and told us he had no objections. He's in full support. He's directly across the street.
Oh, is in support? That's good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So let's see if any of the members have any further follow-up questions, or if someone's ready to make a motion. And like I said, there is urban forestry conditions 3 and 5 on this.
Right.
And yeah, the typical engineering construction in the event of a consent application.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, as regards the consent, I find it to be quite appropriate development in the immediate context. I can see a number of narrow lots with detached homes in this block. 70, 72, 70, 69, 71, 77, et cetera, et cetera. I also see a number of semi-detached buildings. So I think the proposal here makes a lot of sense in terms of compatibility. So I would recommend approval of the consent subject to the standard conditions of consent. And with respect to the minor variances, I find them to be satisfying all 4 conditions under the Planning Act. And I recommend approval subject to urban forestry condition 3, as well as conditions that have been requested by engineering and construction services and the transportation department.
Okay, thank you.
So those would be my motions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Taylor, for weighing in on that. We have a seconder for that motion.
I'm prepared to second that motion.
Thank you, Ms. Reddick. All in favor? You have unanimous approval. Thank you, Mr. Perez.
Thank you very much. Have a good day.
Okay, you too. Our next application is item number 28, A, B, and C, 37 GORT Avenue. Again, it's a consent to sever the lot into 2 parts, 2 undersized residential lots, and on each side to build a new semi-detached dwelling with an attached garage requiring variances to the zoning bylaw. And there were 9 variances on each of those pair of semis. We have a copy of a presentation, the site-specific zoning bylaw, and planning memo recommending refusal of the application. I believe there's also urban forestry conditions 1, 3, and 5. Standard consent conditions in the event of from engineering and construction, in the event of a severance, and we have opposition as well from 42 Falk Avenue. Okay, Mr. Romano. Mr. Romano with us?
Mr. Chairman, I have unmuted Mr. Romano, but just to let you know, the next door neighbor at 35 GORT Avenue, Tim Jaworski, is not with us today.
Okay.
I don't know why Mr. Romano isn't responding.
So why don't we stand that down? In the meantime, go to item number 29, which was deferred. A matter was deferred from the February 27th hearing. 39 Thompson Avenue, which is an application to construct a new detached dwelling with an attached garage. And there are 7 variances. I have a note here that this matter, the urban forestry is requesting condition number 2. However, I have a note here that the matter is to be deferred to correct an oversight. We also have covering letters from Mr. Flynn. So again, you know, when we get these packages that have been deferred, we get all the information from the current hearing date and from the previous hearing date. And in the old days, when we used to have hard copies, those old drawings would be in another color, the materials from the first hearing. I'm just asking that perhaps in the when we now have electronic packages, perhaps that should be put in a separate folder so that we can clearly see which reports, which letters of support and opposition relate to the current situation or the previous situation, without having to go through and check the dates on the letters and to see if they're still valid or they're no longer valid because they refer to old plans. So just a comment. But is Michael Flynn there?
I'm here, sir.
On item number 29, and as well as a bunch of neighbors. But am I correct, sir, that this matter has to be deferred? Or is this a request, or is this a fait accompli type situation, Mr. Carvalino?
I believe that planning staff and the applicant are both requesting a deferral. That's the last we heard, so that they can continue discussions.
Right, and there's a reference to an oversight. So the question is this something that has to happen because there's something that's wrong or missing, or is it something that you have to ask us both planning? It's usually when it's both planning and the applicant, it's something that has to be done, or not necessarily, but just to let the neighbors know exactly what the situation is here, whether it's something that just has to be done. I assume these 3 neighbors are waiting on the line, 4 neighbors rather.
So, Mr. Chairman, Andrew Watson will not be speaking.
Okay.
There is another neighbor, if you flip the page, Paul Schofield.
Yep.
If this matter is going to be deferred, then only Paul Schofield will speak. However, if it proceeds on its merits, then all 3 remaining members will speak. All 3 neighbors will speak, but they want to speak in a certain order.
Okay, so let's first see if it's going to have to be deferred. Let's hear from Mr. Flynn.
Good. Yes, sir.
What's the oversight that we have to defer?
I don't know that there's an oversight. That's the first I've heard of an oversight. However, planning contacted me late in the process after this item had been scheduled.
Yeah.
And we discussed possible changes that they would like to see, and they related to height, wall height, the deck height, and the FSI. So we dealt with the applicant. The applicant agreed to make changes, and the changes are, as I am aware, have been made, but the drawings have not yet been vetted by zoning plan review.
Have the variances been revised to what they're
Yes.
to be revised to?
So there will be 3 height variances changed, and there will be an FSI change. I haven't even seen them, so I don't know what they are. But I'm hoping to have them reasonably soon, and then we will put them in for a zoning review. And in the meantime, I was dealing with Mr. Watson at TOCA about the actual deferral request. And he, as I understand it, he is in support of it. I have an email from him saying, I haven't seen your request for deferral yet. What are you doing? So I did communicate back and forth with him, and we're happy to cooperate with TOCA and Mr. Watson specifically, who is the chair of their development committee, as I understand it.
Okay. So you're saying, so it sounds like we really have to defer. The neighbors are okay with the deferral. Planning wants the deferral. As far as what the notification we got, believe it or not, it's getting, we got a general memo with a one-line checkbox that requesting 5 of the items here today be deferred with really no reason given. And item 2939 Thompson is one of them. So
Right.
It's sort of like when you get a letter from CRA and they check off a box. So they haven't given us a personalized reason for this. They've just lumped it in with 5 other deferral requests on today's agenda.
Yeah, I'm aware of that.
My apologies.
It's not a problem. So
yeah. So you're in favor of the whatever. We have to know what the purpose of the deferral. You're not making. You made changes, but they haven't been reflected on the plans. Is that what you're saying?
That's correct, but they will be shortly.
Shortly meaning in a couple of minutes, a couple of days, or a couple of weeks?
Well, as I'm waiting to get copies of them so that I can file them with the plan review people.
Okay,
and
but
hopefully
we're not
we'll
getting it today. We're not getting it today. So as far as
no,
we know,
you're not getting. You are not getting them
right.
today.
So today's application must be deferred.
Correct.
Okay. Perhaps then we should get, I guess, the one neighbor who's going to deal with the deferral request, Mr. Schofield at 35. Perhaps we should get him to weigh in. Mr. Schofield.
Hello. So, yeah, this is Paul Schofield. I live at 35 Thompson Avenue, so 2 properties to the north of the development. Before I just have a very small remarks, but I just want to add some clarity because it talks about incorrectly identified variances. That was actually the second time they came in. Yeah. This is the third time they came in. So the second time they came in, there was incorrect variances identified and the application was deferred. Yeah. And now we're here before you where they basically submitted the same plans. And I think it was the same notice problems that the city planners have alluded to, and therefore they've recommended deferral, which I think Mr. Flynn now supports.
Yeah. Well,
so there is no correction of an overstatement at this time.
He's waiting for the plans, I guess, to reflect the changes he's made. Yeah. On the other hand, it's at his peril. His client is the one carrying the property. For you neighbors, I guess, deferral other than in COVID, you don't have to get them and drive down here and sit in the room for 3 hours. Yeah. So you'll just have to come back another day. You will be re-notified.
But if I can just add, please,
sure.
if just 1 minute of your time. Yep. So we did, we do support the application, the deferral of the application, as I think Mr. Watson was referring. He's not supportive plans because we don't see them, but of a deferral, so they can address city planning's concerns, which is a large FSI and all 3 of the variances, which was the building, wall heights, and the platform at the back. But I wish to emphasize that this is the 3rd time this application has been presented to the committee with minimal changes each time, ultimately now resulting in a 3rd deferral. So you were going to see it for a 4th time. Yeah. But further, given that there has been over 80 letters of objection, and I do acknowledge that there is not as many this time, that is in great, for the most part, due to the fact that we had been notified that a deferral was being recommended and supported by the city planners. So the community put pens down. We'd hope that the applicant or the agent take the opportunity now to consult with the neighbors to address their concerns before they emit their revised plans. And I wish to note that this was the last time we were here. This was a condition that the committee actually put in place, that they directed, the committee directed that the applicant and their agent actually consult with the community to address their concerns. However, none of the people who registered to speak today as immediate neighbors, one across the street, one immediately to the north, and the second immediately to the north, to the development, have had any such interaction on the applicant's revised plans. So yes, we do support, and we would hope that the applicant, although the process does not require it. Committee did heavily instruct the applicants to do so. Wish that they would consult the community on this matter. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. And I'll also point out, you're very correct. We have in our package 38 objection letters. And as I mentioned to staff, going forward, when these matters come back and they've been deferred once or twice or three times, or even just once, for the committee members to have to go through and figure out what letters, whether they're previous letters of objection, current letters of objection, whether the previous letters would still apply, we need to have that put into separate subfolders so we can understand and not see 38 letters and know that what we should see is that there were 16 letters for the first application, 10 for the second, none for the third. That will help the committee. Because when you look at this list and you see 38 letters, you know, it's really not very helpful. So thank you, Mr. Schofield, for your input.
Yeah, I was going to say I appreciate the administrative nightmare of having to deal with so many objection letters.
Yeah.
And I have to, again, over the 3 applications to date, there's been 80 letters.
Yeah.
Some of them repeat. I recognize that. Just shows you this the neighborhood's concern and interest in the development in their neighborhood.
So we just suggest to Michael Flynn that perhaps he reach out. He's a good agent to the people who looks like Mr. Watson is dealing with the ratepayers and with the most directly affected neighbors at 37 and yourself at 35 at least, and let them know what's going on.
Yes.
Correct? Especially if you're somewhat supportive, he should be, trying to keep you in the loop. Thank you. Okay, members, so looks like this matter is going to have to be adjourned again. We need a motion. And I take it we don't have to speak to Mr. Carvalini, you said we don't have to speak to weigh in with the other 2 members, the objectors or neighbors, if only on the merits. The only one who was dealing with the request for deferral was Mr. Schofield, who we've now spoken to. Correct?
That is correct, Mr. Chairman.
So committee members on the issue of the deferral.
Mr. Chair, I move for deferral to enable community consultation and revised notice with updated, true and accurate variance requests.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Taylor. A seconder for Mr. Taylor's motion.
Danny Bellissimo seconds the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Bellissimo. All in favor? The matter has been deferred unanimously. Thank you. We'll see you back here again, Mr. Flynn.
Thank you.
Next application is item number 30.
Actually, Mr. Chairman, can we try to go back to 28 if we can? I'm going to try Franco Romano one more time.
Sure.
Mr. Romano, can you hear us? Hello? Okay, there are some other call-in users, so I'm going to unmute them as well just to see if Romano is one of them. Mr. Franco Romano?
Yes, I'm here on the phone as well.
Okay, now I found you. Thank you.
Hello,
Thank you.
Mr. Romano. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Good afternoon, sir. Thank
Glad
you
you're
kindly.
with us. Glad you're with us. Item number 28 is 37 GORT. If we can just go back to that for a second.
Yes,
Consent and
thank you.
severance. Yeah, this is to build a pair of semis, sever the lot. There's 9 variances. We have a copy of your presentation and site-specific zoning bylaws. Urban forestry requesting conditions 1, 3, and 5. We have our normal conditions, engineering, construction in the event of a consent. And we also have community planning that is recommending refusal of the application. So, and urban forestry conditions 1, 3, and 5. Okay, hold on. I'm on the right application. 28, right?
Yes, item 28.
And we have one speaker at 35 GORT who I'm told is no longer with us.
That's correct, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, so we had a neighbor next door. I don't know if you've had any dealings with that neighbor, but he's no longer on the line. But we do have the community.
Yes, we have.
Report.
Okay. Can I'm going to be referring to my presentation sheet.
Sure. Can staff get that up on the board?
One moment, Mr. Chairman. Okay.
Terrific. Thank you kindly. So this is a recent property map. It is a couple of years old because it hasn't been kept up with what's been transpiring within this neighborhood. But what I've done is actually overlaid the proposed semi over top of the lot. And I think that this is instructive because it shows that when we look at other semis, both on the street, and some of them are further north along GORT, as well as on Falk Avenue, the parallel street to the east, there is no difference in terms of the physical character of the semi-detached for this lot and the surrounding character. Numerically, yes, the proposed lots are a little smaller, and that is what I acknowledge as staff's only concern, and that is that the proposed lots of 6.66 meters are not the prevailing character. So they're looking at the area and seeing, are there any other semis that are 6.66 meters? And they couldn't find any, or they couldn't find the majority. And that is actually a true fact. However, what we see in the neighborhood, if you go and look at any semi, is that 88% of the semi-detached dwellings are smaller than what the zoning bylaw requires. They range from 6.75 meters to just over 9 meters. And what we also see within the neighborhood, because it is an RM zoning, is that detached dwellings, 33% of detached dwellings are smaller than the zoning requirement. 100% of multiplexes, and there's three of them that I'm showing on the sheet that are within the same block, and there are more than half a dozen on GORT within the same, the vicinity of the same block that are undersized. So these are multiplexes that are smaller than the zoning requirement. If we go on to FOC, we see that there's a significant number, so of multiplexes that are smaller than what the zoning bylaw requires. So when we actually look at the totality of what this neighborhood consists of, with its variety of dwellings, detached, semi-detached, apartment buildings, the prevailing character is that these dwellings occupy lots that are smaller than what the base zoning bylaw requires for those dwellings. And what is instructive, both from planning's review and from what I've seen in the neighborhood, is that this proposed low-profile, two-story semi-detached dwelling occupies one building footprint on the entire lot. So that equates to one dwelling on the existing lot. It has reasonable side yards, 0.91 meters only for the front portion where the garage is, and then it's over 1 meters in behind. And planning staff have no concerns whatsoever with any of the built form or building siting performance standards. So that's indicative and illustrative of how this dwelling occupies an appropriate amount of space on the lot, and the lots are not too small in order to accommodate the one building with two semis on it in a manner that's consistent with the overall prevailing character, not only of the street, the immediate context, as well as the surrounding neighborhood where undersized lots are the prevailing character. When we look at the building itself, it is being set back so then it is in line with most of the dwellings, because the neighboring buildings are tighter to the front yard. So then there's actually more landscaping and plantable space in the front yard than what is there today. It's not a major issue in order to remove the front yard setback or the building length variance, which are associated with placing the building back. But again, planning staff didn't have any concerns with that. So that's what I'm showing also on the property map. So I would submit that what is being proposed here from a lot frontage perspective is a little smaller than what is numerically the numbers for semis in the area. On Falk Avenue, there's 6.75. On GORT, there's 7.62. Those are imperceptible differences in lot frontage. And I think what's being proposed here will indeed respect and reinforce, is supported by the neighbor to the north, no major issues from the neighbor to the south, and has no major impacts. So I would submit that the proposed variances are very much in keeping with the character of the neighborhood, and they should be approved.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Romano. So we don't have any, we have the neighbor at 35 was supposed to be here, but is not here. Have you dealt with both of the adjacent neighbors? I see we
Yes,
have an
39
objection letter
has
from-
submitted a,
Yeah.
sorry, number 39 GORT had submitted a letter of support that came in after the Thursday or after the submission deadline, so it is on the AIC. Number 35 raised, you know, it was basically some neutral conversations and some emails with the owner about, you know, they like to see the improvement to the site, would prefer to see one building as opposed to two, but it is one building. And I don't think they didn't raise any issues of concern regarding access, setback, height, or the semi-detached whatsoever. And the person that wrote in on FOC, basically, that was also more like a curiosity email as opposed to an objection email. That person is interested to see what's happening in Alderwood. So I don't think there are any major objections, no, that have been filed or that we're aware of in the neighbor and the owner's outreach to the neighborhood.
Yeah, I saw the letter from the neighbor on FOC was a series of questions as opposed to objections.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay, committee members, any questions for Mr. Romano? Thank you for that presentation. And,
welcome.
Just point out, I guess you're okay with the urban forestry conditions, I guess, to bring an application to injured trees. So if no one has any questions, is someone ready to weigh in with a motion? Which means Mr. Thompson.
Well, Mr. Chair, my inclination is to accept and agree with the planning department's recommendation on this, and I also had the benefit of looking at this area up close and personal, as I usually do with consent applications, because they tend to have a more dramatic effect in their neighborhoods. And I just find what's being proposed is incompatible with most of the built form and the lot sizes in the immediate vicinity of the subject property. So I'm going to move for refusal both of the consent and the variance applications.
I second that.
Okay, all in favor? The application is refused. Mr. Danny, I didn't see, was your hand up? Okay.
Yep.
Thank you, Mr. Romano. Okay, so that was item number 28. We did 29, correct? We were jumping around because we couldn't find Mr. Romano. So what are we on now? We're on item number 30. 30, okay, right. 5 Alderton? Did we already do 5 Alderton or no?
No, Mr. Chairman, 5 Alderton is next.
Okay. Lost my spot here, hold on. There's my 5 Alderton, okay. Computer just froze, okay. This is an application to construct a new detached dwelling with an attached garage. There are 11 variances. Michael Ferlin has provided us with a cover letter. We have an arborist report. Planning is requesting that it be built substantially in accordance with the plans. We have 10 letters of opposition. Transportation has no objection. And urban forestry conditions 2 and 5. This matter was deferred from October 6, 2020. Well, Mr. Flynn.
Yes, sir.
Okay, yeah, I see 2 speakers on this in addition to yourself, 9 Alderton and 17 Hartfield Road. So why don't you give us a brief presentation on this?
Yes, sir. All right, first of all, I'd like to tell you that this is somewhat of a confusing application, and most of the objections, or the base of the objections, started out based on the first problem is that it's been categorized as a new house, when in fact it's an existing 2-story house. So many of the variances are as a result of that definition. But as you stated, planning, there is only a planning condition, no objection. Transportation has no objection. Forestry is confused again because of the existing situation, which they believe is a new situation. So if I can deal with the last variance first, the driveway width is existing, and it is intended to maintain that driveway without change. As a result, not only will the city tree, tree number 1 in the arborist report, not be injured or destroyed, but it will actually benefit from the driveway not being changed. So I spoke to the plans examiner, and she said basically because it's been categorized as a new house, everything that exists is being counted as new. And that creates this confusion. So the people in the neighborhood were concerned about the tree, for one thing. This is the city-owned tree, number 1. And also this apparent greed for a wide driveway. The driveway has existed for, I'm going to guess, 40 years, 50 years, and there is no plan to change that. So forestry really shouldn't have a concern on this. And if they had the correct view of the situation, I don't think they would object. It's also important to point out that there is no variance for GFA or FSI. There is no variance for lot coverage. There is no variance for side yard or rear yard setbacks, but there is one for the front yard setback. So what's happening here is you have an existing house that has a proposed front addition and rear addition and second story addition, or a partial second story addition. So that creates the length depth situation.
So
and then we go to
Mr. Flynn, you
I'm
sort of
sorry.
glossed over the fact that you consider this to be a new house and they consider it to be additions, or you consider it to be the existing house with additions and they consider it to be a new build. Is that because a certain number of walls are coming down, or why do you say that?
It's the 50% rule that the city uses. So their thought is that you have to maintain 50% of the walls above grade to be considered an addition alteration. What's happening here is they're building out in front of the existing front wall, and they're building out in front of the rear existing wall. So building department is viewing that as them as not existing anymore, when in fact they are. If you look at the plans, you'll notice that there are existing walls being maintained, both on the ground floor and on the second story. So I think if you look at plan A11, you'll see the existing walls being maintained on the second story. And I think you'll note on the site plan where the additions are going in the front and the rear.
Okay, so are you saying that because you're keeping the existing front and rear walls, but you're building beyond those walls as well?
That's correct.
And perhaps under the planning definition, then it no longer is considered an exterior wall, so it's considered as if you took it down even though it's there, because it no longer continues to be the extension of the house at the rear or the front or something in front of it. Maybe that's just how the definition works, which sort of makes some sense.
That's pretty much it, yes.
It does make sense, though. It's really you're keeping the wall, but it's no longer going to be an exterior wall. It's going to be an interior wall.
Correct.
Anyway.
So I have no real objection to that, but they don't give any credit for the fact that you're trying to add additions to an existing structure. Okay. Whether or not they're exterior walls or interior walls is hardly the point. The point is they exist. And we have to build in accordance with existing circumstances. So, yeah, you can argue that, you should just tear the whole thing down and start fresh, and maybe that's a good idea, but that's not what they're doing.
Well, the elephant in the room, obviously, why the applicants and the agents want to consider it an extension and not a new build is then you can keep your existing side yards and, like you say, your driveway and things of that nature. When if it's considered new, you start over at first principles. So
yeah, and it's easier to...
Yeah.
It's easier to meet the development standards if it's brand new. Yeah. So it's just that we're not doing that, and you've heard me talk about this before. So in this case, had it been considered to be an existing structure and therefore an addition renovation, most of these variances disappear. Like the height variances would disappear because they're matching what's there. They're building on what's there. So, for example, on the ground floor, you've got a 12-foot ceiling. And on the second floor, you've got a 10-foot ceiling. Now, that seems to be a popular thing in recent times, but that contributes to overall height. In this case, this house would not have met the development standards to start with. So, in effect, we're not making it worse. We're just keeping it that way, so to speak.
So, as you pointed out, planning is not opposed to this. They just want it built substantially in accordance, correct?
Correct. And we have no objection to that. But I think it's really important for people to understand that we're not changing the driveway. When I first started speaking to the neighbors, their primary concern was the driveway. And their secondary concern was the city-owned tree at the boulevard. And contrary to what the one neighbor said, when we spoke, she was very pleased, I thought, that we weren't going to injure the city tree at the front. And of course, she has since said the opposite in her letter. But it still remains that we are not injuring that tree, and it's a benefit to the neighborhood, in my view. Okay. So from that perspective, those two issues should have gone away long ago, but they just keep haunting me, so to speak. Then you take the existing height of the first floor and the existing height of the second floor, which creates most of the variances. For example, soffit height, it's an existing situation, although it's not being counted as an existing situation. So, Building and I have this little argument debate all the time, and it's really a matter of interpretation. But the fact remains that that building is there. So I would argue that the variances that are being requested are not severe, even though most of them are related to height. I believe 5 of them are related to height. But that's an existing situation, in my view. So, you can credit that or not, but that's a reality. So outside of that, when you're not asking for FSI or coverage or side yard setbacks or even rear yard setback, you've only got the one front yard setback variance, and they're counting a driveway variance, etc. So this is not an aggressive application, in my view. And I believe that it meets the 4 tests, and it has no significant negative impact on surrounding properties. You see the letters from number 17 Hartsfield, and if you inspected the property, you would know that Hartsfield, the property on Hartsfield, is significantly lower grade-wise than the subject property. So there are, and as I stated in my letter, there are many issues related to grade in that neighborhood or on that street itself. And that creates situations that, you can't meet development standards as a result of. So that's,
Okay,
in a nutshell, that's what it is.
Mr. Flynn, can you try to wrap up and we'll hear from the neighbors, please?
Yes. So in a nutshell, that's the situation.
Okay.
You have an existing building that's not being counted as existing, and that's creating most of the issues.
Okay, thank you. Let's hear from Lynn Corback at number 9, Alderton.
Sorry, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Corback was call-in user number 28, but I think she's call-in user number 36. So let me just unmute that one. Ms. Corback, are you there, please?
Hello.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Okay. Excellent. Thank you. Thank you very much for allowing me some time to speak. First of all, I would object to a representation that our primary concerns related to a driveway and a tree. Our primary concern relates to the entire size and scope of this project and the inconsistency with the character and quality of the homes in the entire neighborhood, and in particular this court. I'll also note that after a long conversation with Mr. Flynn, it became clear and apparent to me that the only reason the 2 walls on the sides were being maintained was in order to take advantage of grandfathering of old allowances that are no longer permitted under current code. So what we have is a little bit of the best of both worlds. I'm challenged by the characterization of this as a simple renovation. The only thing that will remain are 2 side walls solely to preserve prior code allowances, in my understanding. Okay? So not a simple renovation by any means. It is a brand new house for all intents and purposes. It will stick out. I'm sure everyone can imagine a court. You have the narrow entrance and then you have the wide circle. All of the homes right now maintain a pleasing arc, consistent setbacks. They all look and feel consistent. Having one home jut out very significantly, 20 feet is very, very significant in my view, and it will create an eyesore. It will be another, to quote another person earlier today, a monstrous home, which is inconsistent with the character and quality of the neighborhood. I am absolutely open to hearing suggestions that my interpretation is not correct. However, Mr. Flynn has not been able to provide me with any of that additional information after our initial call, where he, once again reiterated the things that he shared with you earlier today.
Okay, thank you, Ms. And I have your letter here. I guess it was dated September, but I guess it still applies.
Yes.
Yeah, the letter.
Yes, and I resubmitted. I resubmitted one as well.
Yeah.
Essentially the same concerns.
I'm looking at the one together with 7 we wrote with the Kim and Bake and Weber, and you and Lloyd. Mr. Lloyd wrote this.
Yes.
So, okay, thank you. Any questions for Ms. Corback before we move on to the next speaker? And I believe the next speaker is someone that you had referred to in one of your letters as a letter that you had read, or someone said they didn't have time to prepare, but they referred to Johan Lauer's letter. So I guess that's the next speaker, 17 Hartfield Road. Juan.
17 Hart.
I don't know if I'm pronouncing
Yeah, that is myself. That is Johan Lauer from 17 Hartfield Road.
Welcome, sir.
Thank you for having me. I'd like to thank the committee for allowing us to highlight all of our objections to this build, and really would like to start off where we left off from the October meeting, which at that time the committee strongly recommended to Mr. Flynn that he meets with all the neighbors to discuss their concerns about all the variants. And I can tell you flat out that he did not do that. He had the one phone call with Lynn, and that was it. And nor did this application make any changes since that time period to this committee meeting right now. It is really unfortunate because we do have a number of issues and questions with regards to the application, specifically with what causes a lot of confusion. Because when you look at the revised plan that was submitted on August 27th, the lot coverage and gross floor area of the existing home and proposed addition, which I'm putting in brackets for him to refer as an addition, don't add up. And the reality of it is how they've submitted it. It makes the existing home look bigger, hence making the addition look a lot smaller, when in reality, you are more than doubling the size of the home to over 7,000 square feet. So I don't know how that is an addition. Also, from the cover letter stated on January 14th, it says that the proposed height of the addition matches the existing home, but revised plans show a drastic increase. And when you go and look at what the existing home is, currently the first floor has 9-foot ceilings and the second floor has 7 feet 4 inches. And the proposed one is 14 feet 6 inches just on the first floor of the height. And then in addition to that is 10 feet on top of that. So by no means, and then you on top of that, you have 8 feet 5 inches for the roof line. So by no means is this keeping into the same as where the house is currently. And that drastically affects all the neighbors surrounding it. I'd like to summarize just a couple of the negative points that this house will bring to the neighborhood. The first one is the shadow impact. The size and the height of this new home, combined with the fact that it sits approximately 5 feet above 3 adjacent properties, will cause significant shadow impact, damaging existing trees, as well as a major loss of privacy, along with diminishing the enjoyment of all our homes in the backyard, and at the end of the day, the property value. Lynn has mentioned the front yard setback, and to her point, all the homes on Alderton Court make a very beautiful even arch and are similar scale back from the road. This proposed bill will disrupt this and negatively impact the character and quality of the court. And lastly, with regards to the arborist report that the builder provided here, we have our own arborist report, which was concluded by a professional that also takes care and maintains our property. And there's multiple discrepancies between them. One of them being that several of the trees that are going to be impacted are missed on the developer's application. And I find it quite amusing that the arborist provides us with tips on how to maintain our trees after the build, but nowhere there does he mention that sunlight is required for trees to maintain their health and growth. And this is something that this really apartment building being built here is going to really diminish our landscape back there and take away our privacy. So given all the above that I've just mentioned and the proposed variants, they do not meet the 4 tests outlined in the Planning Act. In the request, they actually are not minor by any scale. The proposal is not appropriate for the development of the land, as it would negatively impact the properties of the neighbors who are already living there. Therefore, the general intent and purpose of the city's zoning bylaws, official plans are not being maintained. We have expanded upon our reasoning for this in our submitted letter, but we won't get into details of that, but you do have a copy of that one. Yep. In conclusion, this home does not respect and reinforce the existing physical character of the immediate neighborhood. Approving this application would set a dangerous precedence in the neighborhood. It is interesting to note that there was a new construction on Alderton Court, which just finished, and it completely respects the existing conditions and meets all 4 of the test planning of the Planning Act out there. We also believe that the nuances specific to the immediate location have not been taken into account, which is the grade of the current home and the setback. Personally, from our viewpoint, allowing to have a 10.34 meter high brick wall, basically the apartment building built behind us, running the entire length of our property, along with impacting multiple others, and being overlooked by multiple windows and landscape, will definitely be the loss of the view of the sky, the sunlight, and most importantly, our privacy. So we do ask that the application be restricted to the maximum permitted building length, depth, height of walls, overall height, soffit height, and platform area by existing bylaws. And any increase to the above maximum permitted value would severely negatively impact the integrity of my property. And this is 100% a new build. And to Lynn's point, trying to get the best of both worlds is not a healthy situation. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Lauer, for that well-reasoned presentation. And we have your letter as well. Any questions for Mr. Lauer before we move on back to Mr. Flynn to comment on the neighbors' comments? And Mr. Flynn, I'd like you maybe to confirm your neighbor said that your ground floor height is, interior floor height is 14 feet, second floor 10 feet, basement 8.5. Is that correct? Perhaps
ground floor is 12 feet.
12 feet?
Ground feet is 12.
Yeah.
And the second floor is 10.
Okay. So that perhaps contributes to your overall height variance here. I guess you're saying that you know you don't have any FSI or GFA variance here, but you do have other variances which your neighbors find objectionable. So please respond to those concerns raised by the neighbors, and we'll take it into consideration.
Absolutely, if I can find that.
Committee for a decision when she votes. So.
First of all, I don't believe this is a monster home in any fashion. It's not an overly aggressive proposal, given the present circumstances. So, you know, the fact that they say that now say that the primary concern is size and scope, well, I can even understand that because that's the way people normally react to these projects. The comments about the sidewalls being preserved to take advantage of existing setbacks, I don't think is relevant at all. I've already stated we don't have any side yard setbacks. We don't have a rear yard setback. We have a front yard setback, and I grant you that they may not like that, but it's not really out of character. And all of the houses on the court are set back in different fashions and at different heights because of the grades of their lots. So, you know, if they want to argue that the height is out of character, well, you could stand on the roof of this proposal and look up at some of the houses on that court because their grades are much higher. But if you look at the houses across the road, they are actually lower. So it changes dramatically from lot to lot, as it does for 17 Hartsfield. Hartsfield is much lower, lot-wise grade lot, a lot's grade. And so it's a very changing situation, and it doesn't bode well to try and compare those kinds of things because the circumstances are different on almost every lot. So I can only go back and say, you know, we have an existing situation. We have 12-foot floor, ground floor, we have 10-foot second floor, and then we have a roof. So a typical house would be allowed 6'5" or 6.5 meters to the soffits, and then 9.5 to the top of the house. That means you're building a 10-foot roof and two 10-foot floors. Let's argue that 3 meters is 10 feet. So 6.5 is 20 feet, plus another 10 feet for a roof. So you've got a 30-some-odd foot house. This proposal is not that significantly different than what those numbers represent. So yes, it's a variance, but it's not a significant variance from the perspective that it's not something you can walk down the street and say, wow, that house is really big compared to that house over there, because you can't tell. Nobody knows what average grade is walking down the street. And the houses are up and down all over the place. So I don't think there's any negative impact to these variances. Many of them are existing. And the changes will not be that significant. So I would argue that it does meet the four tests, that it is appropriate development of the land, that it does meet the character of the neighborhood. It's a two-story house with attached garages and a peaked roof. That's what it is.
Wrap up, Mr. Flynn.
Okay, that's it. I believe that this is appropriate and should be approved.
Okay, thank you. Committee members, any questions for Mr. Flynn or for the two neighbors that have weighed in? And if not, if someone's ready to make a motion.
I have questions of Mr. Flynn. I understand from the presentation that this application has come here before. That's correct, right?
Yes, sir.
And in those presentation, or in this presentation, there's been a lot of talk about existing condition. And beside the site plan, I don't see any drawings, elevation sections, or anything else showing existing conditions. So did you present any existing condition drawings that we could have compared to?
No, we don't have those.
But you, obviously, the architect did those to determine which walls are staying up. He decided not to present it to us. I find that unfortunate, so that's my question.
Well, he does designate on the floor plans which walls are existing.
No, I'm talking about elevations and sections, because a lot of your comments and the people opposing are talking about heights and massiveness, and I'm having a hard time understanding because the drawings are lacking. So I just was wondering if you had submitted something that we had not seen, and your answer is no. Thank you.
Any other questions? Is someone ready to make a motion?
Mr. Chair, I find the requested variances do meet the four tests under the Planning Act. And I recommend approval, subject to the Planning Department condition.
I think that's that'd be tied to the plans, I believe.
Yep.
Yep. Okay, do I have a seconder for Mr. Taylor's motion?
Danny Bellissimo seconds the motion.
Okay, all in favor? Opposed? You're opposed, so carries. Motion carries 2-1 with 1 abstention. Thank you. The application is approved. Next application, actually, can we take a 5-minute break? And then I think we have to return to do 31, 32, 33, and 34. So we have 4 applications left.
Sorry, Mr. Chairman, did you abstain from that last?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Okay. 5-minute break. Return at 4:25.
Mr. Chairman, just announced a 5-minute break, so at approximately 4:23, 4:24, we will continue with the hearing. Thank you.
Actually, can give you back some of these. Phil, do I have the originals of some of these letters here? Give them back to you if you want.
I intentionally did not include that. Yeah. Okay. Oh, I thought, yeah. No, that was intentional. That wasn't an oversight. Oh, okay. Thank you for clarifying. Okay.
Ones downtown are pretty bad in the committee rooms. Yeah.
Okay, what do we got? Oh,
Okay. Are we back up or?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we can proceed.
Okay. Okay, welcome back. Thank you for indulging us for that 5-minute break. Next application is item number 3150 Castleton Avenue. This is an application for construct a second-story addition above the existing dwelling, a 2-story front addition, a new front porch, and a new rear deck. And there are 4 variances. This matter was deferred in the January 16, 2020 hearing for revision to revise and consult. We have a covering letter, a planning report for information that they have no further concerns. The appears that the GFA has been reduced from 1.01 to 0.9, and there's also new setbacks for the deck and other issues. And as I said, planning has given us a report for information in which they report they have no further concerns. And we have urban forestry requesting condition number 2. And we have one speaker on this application, William Outred.
Sorry, Mr. Chairman, it's going to be Arlene Beaumont, who works in Mr. Outred's office.
Okay, Ms. Beaumont,
Yes, hello.
welcome.
Thank you.
You're the only.
Did you want a presentation from me? Do you require
I don't
that?
believe we need one other than what I've, if you'd like to add anything to what I've just said in terms of introducing the application.
Not really. As you mentioned, we've brought down the floor space index. The other variances, all related to side yards, are the same as what we had applied for a year ago. So they're exactly the same. We have dealt with the neighbors. I've been dealing with the neighbors throughout this past year on several occasions, and they've been very pleasant to deal with. And I think we've got something now that everybody can agree upon.
Okay, good to hear. So there is no one else here, so I guess it's based on the changes you've made. Appears that there's some satisfaction because no one's here to complain. Committee members, any questions for Ms. Beaumont, or is someone ready to make a motion? And we have forestry. Okay, and I think we have your letter, Ms. Beaumont, emailed to staff September 23rd. I think the date is wrong. It says it was deferred from January 16, 2020. No, I guess it's right. It just, I guess, took that long to get it scheduled.
Well, we were working on the revisions. It took quite a while to work on the revisions. It is a small lot, and reducing the building size was tricky for the architects.
Okay.
So I don't think I had revised plans until about August or September. And that's why it did take a long time. And COVID, of course, didn't help us.
Right, okay. So any further questions, or is someone ready for a motion?
So just to confirm that the two letters of opposition are no longer concerns? Have we been told that?
Is that a question for me?
We have two letters of opposition.
If the debtors are before the January 16, 2020, that was before the last hearing. That was the date of the last hearing, it looks like.
Yeah, that's right.
So
That's a
those
year.
letters talked about I guess were before you made changes. They were the time of just prior to the first application last January.
Okay.
It's taken a year. And like I said, I've asked in the future that staff try to color code or somewhere indicate what correspondence and what reports are from the previous hearing dates where there's deferrals, so we can readily see what is still applicable and what's not. Okay, so there are no letters of objection currently before us, and we have planning support for information. So someone wants to make a motion.
Danny Bellissimo would like to have a quick question for the applicant. You're aware that forestry has a condition on this application?
Yes, I am.
And you're okay with that? Good.
Yes.
If no one else has any questions, I'll be ready to make a motion.
Go ahead.
I find that the variances are minor in nature and the variances with the condition of forestry.
Okay, seconder for that motion. Ms. Reddick?
Yes, I'll second that.
Thank you. Thank you. All in favor? Unanimous approval. Thank you. Ms. Arlene Beaumont.
Thank you. Thank
Okay.
you.
Okay. Our next application was deferred from March 11th, 2020, 329, 331 Burnhamthorpe Road. It's an application to permit a day nursery, which is not a permitted use in the RD zone. Planning, there's a covering letter from MSH. We have, I think it's through round one of the site plan review application with no concerns. We've been advised by planning. Oh, sorry, I'm on the wrong application, my mistake. 32 Burnhamthorpe. Excuse me, okay. Yeah, so this is for the day nursery. Where it's not a permitted use, and we have covering letters, email parking studies, photos, and planning emails. Yeah, so this matter was deferred back in March because they wanted it until a site plan control application is submitted. And now that it's been submitted, planning is, I believe, I thought I saw that. Yeah, it said, please note that the proposal has had one round of site plan application review without major concerns from the commenting partners. As such, barring any new additional variances, planning has no objection to the above file being scheduled for a hearing. So I assume they haven't come and told us any other concerns. So we have a lot of people registered to speak on this application. The first one being Lorelei Jones, the agent, and Peter Apasnor, the traffic consultant is available for any questions. So let's go to Lorelei Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm a registered professional planner with Macaulay Shomi Housing, and I'm acting on behalf of the owners. We also have John McCallan, who is one of the owners, also available here to answer questions, as well as you mentioned, Peter Apasnora, Crozier Engineering.
Can you try to just speak a little clear? You seem to be trailing off every sentence, so you can just try to speak a little clearer. Would be helpful.
My apologies, sir.
Yeah.
Is this better?
Much better, much better.
Okay. So the application was deferred at the request of staff until a site plan application was submitted.
Yep.
And we're now in the middle of the site plan application process, and we have made a second submission to the city and are going to continue to work with planning staff to address the details of the site layout. I do have an email from Sarah Henstock, who's the acting director for the Etobicoke district, saying that staff have no objection to the Committee of Adjustment application. We did speak to the neighbors when we submitted the application, or before we submitted the application the first time. And at that point, they didn't express concerns to us specifically, but they did attend the first committee meeting and expressed concern at that point. So I did speak to them after the first meeting, and unfortunately, they said that they were objecting to the use. And so nothing that we could do in terms of the design itself was going to address their concerns. So we have, as I indicated, been moving forward with the application because we do think that the use is appropriate. The site is designated neighborhoods in the official plan, which permits small-scale institutional uses such as daycare centers and recognizes that they play an important role in the neighborhood. I also want to point out that the use would be permitted if it were located in the two existing houses, but we feel that a new building provides a better layout and functionality for the daycare, and it's therefore a better environment for the children. The daycare building is being designed with a residential aesthetic, so we think it reflects the surrounding development and fits with the character of the neighborhood. It is located adjacent to an existing commercial use, and the parking lot is proposed to be located beside that commercial use, so it won't be adjacent to the residential uses to the west. The site's going to continue to be zoned residential, but the variance will permit the daycare in this different built form. The owners, who are Sunnyside Daycare, do run other daycare centers in the city, and they do feel that there is a demand for this additional daycare in the area. Otherwise, they wouldn't be investing in this site. As part of the site plan application process, grading on the site is going to be controlled, and we will ensure that any water is appropriately addressed on the site itself. There's been a geotechnical study and a stormwater report submitted in support of that site plan application, and there are two large bioretention swales on the site that are going to control the flow of water to ensure that is properly addressed and that the parking lot will be able to accommodate any of the flows coming off of it. We recognize that there are some regulated trees that are going to need to be removed, but we are retaining a significant number of trees on the property and new trees will be planted. We recognize the need to submit a tree permit application, but we haven't done that until we're satisfied that the site plan has been finalized with city staff, and then we will be submitting that application. A traffic and parking study has been done and concluded that the roads can handle the traffic. We recognize that Burnhamthorpe is a busy road, but it's an arterial road, so it is expected to carry higher volumes of traffic. These are responsible daycare owners who are concerned about the safety of the children and their neighbors, but they do have the professional advice saying that the traffic will work on this site. And in addition, the city's transportation has reviewed the findings of the study and accepted them. The parking that's being proposed on the site exceeds the parking required by the city's zoning bylaw. We would normally be required to provide 7 spaces, and we're providing 17. Again, the parking study has concluded that that parking is sufficient. The owners want to indicate that they are not proposing to provide parking for their staff, and that's consistent with how they deal with all of their other daycare centers, and they've never had an issue with that. There is buses that are along Burnhamthorpe that will provide access for staff to get to work, or if they're within walking or cycling distance, they use those options as well. We have seen concerns expressed by the neighbors with respect to the parking study that was done, and specifically the proxy parking survey that was done. And the traffic consultant has indicated that the drop-off and pickup rates that they observed and calculated on the other site are similar to what they have observed and worked with on other daycare centers that they've worked with. So they're standing by their recommendations that the parking that's being provided is appropriate.
Okay, sorry, if I can just interrupt. Ms. Jones, you're aware that the neighbors have done their own parking study, or I believe it wasn't a professionally done study. I believe the neighbor did it himself, Mr. Laddie at 333. It's in our materials.
Yes. Yes.
So that was
we
done
have
after
seen that,
yours,
and that was why I made that.
Did your report comment on that report, or was theirs done after yours?
No, the report, our parking report does not comment on that.
I see.
But the traffic engineer is available to answer questions.
Okay. Well, has your traffic engineer analyzed what they've provided in this analysis that they've done themselves? And is it does it jive, or is it completely different than what the traffic and what his survey showed? I haven't reviewed it in great detail.
I'm sorry, sir. I was having a little difficulty hearing your comments there.
Sorry, I'll repeat it. I'm just saying that has your traffic consultant subsequently reviewed the findings of the neighbors' traffic study?
Yes, they have.
Okay. Did they find it accurate, or they have issues with it? I'm just trying to see if we have divergent reports here, or if they're sort of
right.
similar.
As I indicated, the traffic engineer is available to answer questions, and it may be best to put that to him directly if you would like.
Perhaps we can wait until we hear from this particular neighbor and perhaps ask from that perspective. So sorry for interrupting. Go ahead, please. And if you can please try to wrap up, I guess, because we have to move on.
And that's fine, sir. Really, it was simply the only remaining comments were with respect to the parking comments from city staff. And again, our traffic consultant is satisfied with things as have been proposed. And we will be working with the city staff with respect to the site plan to be working out those sort of more detailed site plan details.
Right. Okay.
So we feel that the minor variance does meet the 4 tests under the Planning Act and will allow for appropriate development on the site.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Jones. We'll hear then, I guess, from the neighbors, unless anyone has any questions for Ms. Jones before we move on to the next speaker. Okay, the next speaker, I guess, is Hedy Blaug of the Cavelli Construction Company, located next door at 313 to 327 Burnhamthorpe.
Correct. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, good. Okay, so I am the neighbor next door. In looking at the plan, I have concerns that the location of the driveway, which would be parallel to my driveway, adjacent to it, is not in a prudent location. Cars coming out of the daycare would be going both east and west on Burnhamthorpe. My driveway is a one-way, so I have cars crossing Burnhamthorpe 2 lanes, and I think it would not be advisable, in actual fact, dangerous to have the 2 driveways side by side.
Okay. That's the end of your submission? Are you doing anything like to add to that?
No, it's just if I just know the amount of traffic and the accidents that I have observed on Burnhamthorpe in the last 13 years. Cars crossing going east on Burnhamthorpe when a car wants to go north into our plaza. And in the winter where the snow piles up exactly in that spot, because the city doesn't clear it away from the bus stop, will lead to a dangerous situation.
Okay.
So if I would do anything, I would have the driveway further away from my driveway on the other side.
Okay, thank you.
Okay,
Any
thank you.
questions for Ms. Blaug? Committee members, no questions? Okay. Move on to the next speaker, Holton Hunter at 167 High Park Avenue. Mr. Hunter there?
Right, that sounds good. I think the model I sent over is actually, I'd sort of give myself a B+
I
on
think Mr. Hunter's again in a private conversation.
I think that's sort of what they were modeling as well.
And I don't know where
I'm gonna put him on mute for now.
Yeah, 167 High Park. Is he a consultant or a lawyer? And the next one also, John McCallum at 120 Adelaide Street West. That's an office, downtown office tower, Suite 2105. Sounds like a lawyer.
No, actually, yes, hello, it's John McCollum here. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. Sorry, both John McCollum and Holton Hunter are directors of Sunnyside Daycare. We're being represented by Lorelei. So.
Oh, okay, that wasn't indicated. That makes some sense then. So you're the applicants.
That's correct. Yes,
Okay, so
John McCollum and Holton Hunter are both applicants.
We don't need to hear from you. We've heard from your agent, correct? You're just here for any questions or whatever.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, I put them on mute.
So they're just here to observe.
That's correct.
Okay. So the next speaker is the neighbor I referred to who did the other parking report himself, David Halati at 333 Burnham Thor, right next door.
Yes, good afternoon.
Welcome, sir.
Thank you for giving me this opportunity to speak. I trust that the committee members have had the opportunity to review the documents that I submitted on behalf of the opposition.
Yeah, I referred to it earlier. That's your traffic. You did your own traffic study.
I did.
Okay.
And
what sort of? Can I just ask you, what's the nature of the property you have? What's your property? Is it in? It's a residential building.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. But the neighbor on the other side is a construction company. The neighbor who's
no, I guess they have a construction company, but I guess they own the plaza.
I see. Okay.
I don't know them, but I do have similar concerns with them as well. So, major concern, yes, is the traffic. I did find flaws in this pickup and drop off analysis because the companies that did the analysis used the capacity number of the proxy site rather than the actual number at the time, the actual student enrollment at the time. So if they had taken the time to walk inside and talk to one of the representatives there that runs the daycare, they would have known this and could have taken that into account into their numbers, which I guess they didn't. So, I mean, it's all in my report here. You can see that there's not enough parking spaces being allocated for there to be sufficient space, for in and out traffic here. That proxy site tends to fill up, and there's double parked cars.
Just interrupt for a second. You do realize that development planning from a transportation is requesting certain conditions of approval?
Yep.
Okay, you're aware of that. Okay, just didn't know. Because they're suggesting that various things be done.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know how this parking situation will be able to handle the cars coming in plus any employees that are parking. I can't see. Recently the revisions have said that now they want to increase the enrollment to have 119 student capacity rather than 108. So that will also increase the amount of traffic and pick up and drop off and the amount of employees. So how do we know that the employees will not be using any of these parking spots and that they all take public transit and walk to work? Because out of the employees, 53% of the employees at the proxy site drove to work and parked in that parking site, which created problems. And the other issue is, I mean, you want to go ahead and basically pave over one entire property here, which, like, between that and the trees that come down. Now, to me, through the records that are provided here, forestry is opposing this. dated from February 27th, they recommend that they deny the variance based on the trees that are on the property. And that's a major concern of mine. I mean, put yourself in the position of being the neighbors here. And Ms. Roddock, you have a beautiful background behind you of trees, very lovely trees. Just imagine that being taken down, put in a big, all those trees coming down, a parking lot placed in there, and a new 2-story building that extends 30 feet beyond my house. There are water issues on this site. I know that there's been a hydrological assessment done. There are both my house and 329 are the low properties on this site. And every time there's a significant rainfall, there is pooling in both of our backyards. My basement has flooded on a number of occasions. I've had to pump water from the backyard to the front yard when it collects there. So I have water concerns. You start paving over half of that, or that entire property at 329, and then you expand the footprint of the house. Where's the water going to go? The bioswales that are proposed are to go in the front yard, and there's no problem in the front yard with water. It's in the backyard. And yeah, the traffic flow in this street it's incredible. If you could sit here and watch out your window and see the accidents that happen that the other speaker talked of. Yes, last week somebody drove across the lanes and drove into the tree on the boulevard directly in front of 329 Bermsthorpe. Last December, another car drove through those 2 front properties, through the hedge along my driveway and into the street light post in front of my house at 7:30 a.m. in the morning when children will be being dropped off. It's a very congested site. The traffic builds up in both directions. And this parking plan, there's only one way in and one way out. The other plazas on the street corner all have additional entrances. You come in one way, you come out the other way. There's sufficient parking or traffic flow through there. It doesn't congest the area anymore, but I think this is going to increase it tremendously because people are going to try and make a left turn coming into the property. Others are going to want to make a left turn coming out of the property, and no one's going to be able to go anywhere.
Yeah, Mr. Lady, can you try to wrap up because you're over 5 minutes?
I know I could go on and on. Yeah. I mean, everything is in the report that I've sent you and the accompanying information there.
Okay, so notwithstanding, notwithstanding development and planning and review in their memo dated January 5th said that they have no further concerns. This was, I guess, done. They increased the students from 108 to 119 or something, and it said that subject to revised site plan make with certain things shown, they have no further objection.
Well, how about forestry?
I'm just looking at if forestry is asked for. Do we have forestry conditions? I believe yes.
No.
No, we don't.
What happened to those two conditions?
Hold on, I have a February 27th memo, and then I have another one dated March.
Yeah, which was the same thing. They're both saying, you know, there are several mature trees on this property. One being this incredible, beautiful sugar maple in the backyard that people stop and take pictures of in the winter or in the fall. And I mean, when we had the one consultation we had, which was 5 minutes at the end of my driveway, these are tree people, and they want to rip down this tree for what? I don't see where they're going to replace 18 trees on the property.
I see there's a isn't there a plan February 27th? Your forestry condition. Oh,
I have that same thing here. It says deny the variance.
Oh, we do have a standard condition, Mr. Lady, for they're asking for condition number 2.
Okay.
Submission of a complete application for permit to injure or remove a privately owned tree.
Yeah,
so there is a forestry condition here, which is what we call condition 2.
Okay.
Forestry condition number 2. So you're correct. There is a urban forestry condition, but it permits them to take the tree down.
Well, I think that's,
and like I said, we have your parking analysis. We have the applicants, and then we have transportation's interpretation.
Okay. Well,
So
you also have
let's-
the petition that represents 15 households immediately impacted by this.
yeah.
So,
Okay.
you know.
So does anyone have any questions for Mr. Halady before we move on to the next speaker? Okay, so let's.
But
move
just
on.
if I may.
Yes.
I'm relying on Urban Forestry's memo dated January 14th, 2021, in which they do not require any conditions of approval.
I think we just.
So who, I got to find out who approved this
January
to
14th,
go ahead.
2021.
Wow.
That's it. Well, how come it's not on my list?
Sorry, is that in our package? I didn't
I
see
don't
that
have
in
that
our
either.
package.
Yes.
The last thing I have from them is.
There is urban forestry condition number 2, just to clarify.
No, there isn't.
No?
That has to do with 47. There is no.
But it is item number 33, though. No, it's item number 32. Sorry, it's item number 30. Wrong one. Okay, there is no urban forestry condition.
No problem.
Okay, so let's move on to the next speaker, Janet Christiunas of 15 East Glen Crescent.
Hello.
Hello.
My name is Janet Christiunas. I am not happy that this is going on in our neighborhood. I enjoy the suburbity of the location. I don't think it's a good idea to continue. Doesn't matter if it looks like it still is, to continue more commercial add-ons into our area in our neighborhood. There are group homes, there are 3 daycares, we have plenty. So I really oppose anything with this.
And where are you located, ma'am? You're at 15 East Glen Crescent, and your neighbor is also
Yes.
at 17, is the next speaker. So
Yes.
That's the next street behind. You're behind there?
Right, our backyards connect.
Yes, yeah, okay. And I see you're 15, so you're directly, and the other people are right behind. You're at one property over to the
Right.
to the
So
west.
we build, yes, so we be able to view everything
Yeah,
from
for
our
sure, for
deck as
sure.
we go outside in the morning.
Yes. As
And
well as
witness the
neighbors.
drop-offs.
Right. So
Yeah.
you feel there's enough daycares and this should not be permitted.
There's plenty of daycares. There's 3 that I can list off the top of my head. And they are within walking distance. So I don't know why we need a 4th.
Okay.
It doesn't
Okay.
make any sense.
Okay, does anyone have any questions for this neighbor, or we'll move on to the next? You'd like to add anything else, or that's basically your submission?
I think I got my point across. Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you. Next speaker is Janet's next door neighbor, Ms. Or Mr. Curescu. 17 East Glen Crescent.
I live in 17 East Glen Crescent. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to talk about this matter. So we strongly oppose the building of the nursery. So we are actually living exactly at the northern border of these 2 properties, and our backyard is adjacent to the backyards of these 2 properties.
Yes.
First, this application extends the commercial property zone to our backyards, which we do not want, as also Janet has mentioned. Second, it creates this new construction, this new building, and this new structure is going to create a lot of inconveniences for us. And I mean, as long as we live there, it will be inconvenient for us. But especially also when we want to sell this house, it's going to lower the value of our house because it will be inconvenient for other people too. So we have several concerns. The first one is about safety. So we enjoy the safety of living near families who live in these properties and will look out of their property for any trespassers and etc. With the nursery, we will not know who is coming and who is going. And especially at night, when there's no one over there, with this big parking lot, that is, by the way, is extended from Burhamtrup to our fence. So it comes up to our backyard. we don't know who will be coming and going there. So it's just instead of having these beautiful trees and residential property,
Yes.
now we will have a big parking lot that is coming up to our property.
Yeah.
Now I don't know who's going to come and go at night, especially at night. We feel uncomfortable with this with this type of commercial property being built. So the second thing is that this construction, I mean, between these properties and my house, there's like a line of trees that has very nice trees that covers that provides a very nice privacy between these two houses and our house. Now,
do you not know that maybe they're going to keep those trees for privacy? Because I guess on one side, on the west side, they have a play area. The parking is on the east side. So
yes, but we have we have a triangular lot, and our backyard it covers both the east and west.
Yes.
So the trees goes from the both, like it covers both properties. So the trees in between go from west of the property to the east. So then these are very mature big trees. And
so perhaps we can ask the applicant if they intend on keeping those trees in order as a spatial separation from their parking and their play area with your rear yard. Those trees, you obviously would like to see them kept and maybe even increased and put in if there's any. Would you not like to see a buffer between the two properties, especially with the commercial use of the play area and the parking? So I don't understand about the trees. You like the trees. The trees are good, right? To provide some privacy for you. So
yes.
What was your point about the trees?
No, that's what I mean. That's I want them to keep you like. I worry that they might cut these trees.
Yeah, we'll ask Miss Jones if those trees are planned to be retained or not when she gets a chance to respond. Okay.
Okay, and then my third concern is the noise. My wife is a homemaker, and we have a 2.5 years old kid, and we have also a tenant who is a retired lady. So the outdoor playground will be adjacent to our property, and we are concerned about the noise during the day. And of course, we don't know what's going to happen at night. We are also concerned in the safety, that as I mentioned. Okay, so these are my concerns, and we really don't want a commercial property being built, even if it's a nursery on our backyard.
I certainly appreciate you're the one most directly affected by that. You and Mr. Halady at 333 are the most affected. Now there is a school right there, right? So, but you're not behind the school. You did when you bought your house. You weren't behind the school. So are there houses behind the school? I'm looking at the plan here.
Which school are you referring to? Which school are you referring to?
There's isn't there a school? What's that building next to the property on Burnhamthorpe?
Little Scholars Academy. That's on the corner. It's already that one is not adjacent to us. I mean, it's just we see them from the corner. It's just but that's a very small day nursery. It's just can take maybe 20 people or 20 people or so. Okay. And I mean, even that we don't like that corner, but just we don't want it to be extended further. So I mean, we don't directly we are not adjacent, but like we see that commercial part from the corner. But just and there's also, as Janet mentioned, there are other nurseries just in the other corner, southeast of the Burnhamthorpe and Burnhamthorpe and the what is the intersection? Sorry, just the southeast part of that commercial property. There's another nursery too, and then there are a couple of church nurseries on the east. Just within walking distance.
Okay, sir, if you can try to wrap up your comments because you're over 5 minutes, but can
So,
I,
first of all, just to clarify,
Yeah.
we don't want a commercial property behind our backyard. It's for our safety. It's for our convenience. We don't want any of this. We don't want noise. We don't want other people that we don't know coming and going to these properties. And as
Okay,
a
thank
result,
you.
we oppose it.
Okay, can I ask you, did the applicant either, I know this was deferred from last March, so this has been around a while. Have they come and spoken to you about how they would protect your privacy by retaining those trees, or even putting in more trees, or other options, like even in terms of the parking, perhaps the parking lot is going to be locked at night after hours so people don't get back there or hang out there? Has there been any
We
communication
didn't,
at all with the
I mean,
applicant?
they didn't come to talk. They didn't come to talk to me, but to be fair, I told them that I don't want commercial property. That's it. So I told them that there's no way, even if
Fair enough.
the
Fair
trees come, I still will object to that. Even
Okay.
if they keep the trees, I still would object to that. But I suspect that they are gonna keep the.
Yeah. Okay.
Here,
So
they're gonna
let's.
cut it.
So, sir, thank you for your comments and your concerns, so letting us know what your concerns are. So we're going to go back to Ms. Jones now to respond to the concerns raised by yourself, by your next door neighbor, by Mr. Halady, and the other neighbor right next door. So we've heard from four different people with concerns. So now we go back and give her a chance to respond. And does anyone have any questions for any of the other speakers and neighbors before we move back to the applicant to respond to the concerns? No? Okay. So, Ms. Jones?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I will sort of try and go through them in the order that I heard them.
Yep.
With respect to the first speaker's comments with respect to the driveway being located immediately adjacent to her driveway, there actually is a separation distance of about 6 meters between the two driveways. And I recognize that that is a close proximity, but they're not shared driveways. So there is a little bit of spatial separation. I can ask our transportation engineer to comment on that as well. With respect to the comments about the use itself, as I indicated, we do feel that this use is appropriate for the area. And as I indicated in my initial remarks, while there are other daycares in the area, the owners feel that there is still demand for additional daycare spaces in this neighborhood. The building itself, while it will extend past the neighbor's house, does not require any variances in terms of the setbacks. The other comment that was made was with respect to water on the site. We are aware of their concerns with respect to that, and that's why there are the bioswales on the property. They are in the front yard, but the grading on the site will ensure that the water is flowing into those bioswales. There will be underground pipes that are directing the water to the appropriate location to be taken care of, so that none of the water from the site will be going on to the neighbor's property. Engineering will be reviewing those plans and making sure that that happens, and it will all be secured through a site plan agreement with the city. So we feel very comfortable in saying this is not going to create any water issues on the neighbor's property. With respect to the trees at the rear of the property, we are saving a lot of those trees. There are a few that are going to have to be removed. We would be happy to plant additional trees along that rear lot line, but city forestry does have specifications in terms of how closely you can plant trees. And so given the trees that are being retained there, I'm not sure that there's room to plant additional new trees and still meet the forestry requirements. But we are, happy to take a look at it. There are additional new trees that are being planted in the backyard. The owners, from a daycare perspective, like to have lots of trees in the backyard. It's healthy to have the children in shade as opposed to in sun when they're out playing. So they are trying to retain the trees where possible on the property. If it's possible, I would like to now turn the matter over to our traffic engineer.
Okay, briefly, I guess to respond to the traffic issues that have been raised by the neighbors and to talk about the report.
Hello,
Mr.
can you guys
Brady
hear
did.
me?
Yep.
Mr. Chairman, I'm Peter, and I'm speaking on the traffic aspect here.
Okay.
So the first issue I had the neighbors raise has to do with the driveway. So it's not uncommon to have driveways side by side like that. The only thing that needs to be looked at would be to ensure that there's good sight lines, there's a good signage to make sure that there's safety for traffic coming in and out of those two driveways. Additionally, I've seen that the site plan itself has located a driveway appropriately, so it's all the way to the east, on the eastern limits of the site. So this as well helps, given the other access, the other intersection that is just nearby. Overall, safety on the nearby intersections and on Benatop Road has been something that I also realized that they raised. If there is safety concerns on the road itself, that should be something that I would advise neighbors to send that recommendation to the city itself, the city transportation department, to take a look at. But I imagine that the city has a program that already would take care of any issues of safety on the roads as well. And to add to that, we did put together a traffic study, which is based on standard software. We use standard traffic analysis methodologies, and we use the guidelines that are standard practice, and we conducted this analysis. Based on those analysis, a steady intersections or boundary intersections that were identified as critical to this site were the Martin Grove and Benatop intersection, as well as the Benelm Drive and Benatop Road. And so looking at those and analyzing them, as well as the site access itself, the operations of these intersections were all at acceptable levels. That's to say, that we have a standard which accepts whether or not operations are good enough and would provide a good level of service to traffic users. And based on all of that, the intersections were acceptable, and it's confirmed by the city's acceptance of the traffic study.
Yes, so you're the author of the traffic studies with Crozier, right? The first one and the second one, the one in January and the one in September.
Both of them.
You're the author of those reports.
Both of them, yes, sir.
Yes. Okay. So I'd like you to wrap up because you're running out of time. Between you and Lorelei, you're over 5 minutes, well over. But I want to get
right.
If you can comment also on what the
packet.
Mr. Halady did his own count.
Yep.
Is that reasonable? Is that meet with your expectations? Do you have any comments?
Mr. Chairman, I can confirm the veracity of the study they did. I did take a quick look at it, and it seemed to be just mimicking what we did. And I think that the main issue that was raised there had to do with the enrollment versus capacity.
Correct.
At the time of the study, we had information on the capacity, and we tried to get information on enrollment and did not have that. But we made judgment that the rate that we obtained as the pickup drop-off rate was acceptable, given that it was aligned with several other sites or day nurseries around the city of Toronto. It's also important to note that the site actually meets the zoning bylaw. So the site requires 7 parking spaces. They are providing 17 parking spaces. So they meet the bylaw. This is the typical practice. All municipalities around would look at the bylaw itself, and you should be fine with that. A pickup drop-off is a secondary requirement that the city of Toronto has, and based on the study and based on the analysis that we did, I am comfortable that the capacity of the site is good enough to accommodate the forecasted pickup drop-off at the site. The reason I'm saying this is also based on the conservativeness of this study that we did. We looked at the fact that we have some fast food services on the site. So we have 2 fast food units there, and we expect, or we based on the counts they did, and the observations that we got from our consultant who did the counts, dwell times are expected to be greater at this site and resulting in more accumulation.
Yes, sir. Can you
and
please try to
also
wrap
that
up?
the rates-
I've been lenient, but can you please try to finish up because we have to.
Yeah, I'm just wrapping up right now, and yeah, so based on that influence, we expect that the rate we had was very conservative. Secondly, as noted by Lorelei, we looked online and realized that the child care advantage also noted that we have 500 prospective employees within 5 kilometers of the site. So it's actually possible for them to have all the employees come in at onset, and this is something the client has confirmed that they do with all their day nurseries. And the final point I would like to make is that based on those other day nurseries that I was referring to, the average rate that they got for our 10 sites that we did, that this study found was 0.10. So we had 0.12, and the average for all those 10 sites was 0.10.
Okay, please,
So
sir, if you can
we are
please wrap
actually
up.
lower.
I'm sorry, I've let you go on way too long. Please wrap
Yep.
up.
Yeah. So based on all of this, it's my opinion that the site will not have any traffic impact that is adverse to the boundary roads. At the same time, the site's parking can accommodate the parking demand at the site.
Mr. Chairman, our YouTube stream ends in 20 minutes. We have to.
We have to finish.
We have to
We'll
finish.
have another application, sir.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman.
If I had known that, I would have cut you off a few
conclude.
minutes
That's it.
earlier because I've let you go on way too far. And just one question. The issue is the other report that's done by Mr. Alady is at another school with different capacity. Maybe, I don't know if it's the same parking situation. But you're the professional parking guy, and you've done a report, and the city is made some comments and is looking for some issues based on that report. So this report that Mr. Halady did is at another school, and I guess it is helpful. It's the best I guess he could do because you're not operating the school there. So any follow-up questions for Ms. Lorelei Jones or Mr. Appas Snor, the parking consultant, parking and traffic consultant, based on his reports, or we bring it into committee for a motion. And thank you all the neighbors for your input, and as well as for the applicant on this matter.
Danny Bliss would like to ask a question of staff. A bit confused about forestry conditions. Are there forestry conditions? Because I see a report in the attachment, Forestry 2, that was dated March 3rd, asking for 2 conditions. So are there conditions still for forestry?
Urban forestry. We just saw that list. Urban forestry 2? Oh, this was for 47 Burnham Thorpe. Okay, so there is no conditions for forestry, correct? Okay.
Sorry, just to clarify, the forestry memo from March 2020 asking for a deferral denial, that does not stand anymore?
Our current memo does not identify this property as having forestry conditions. It may be as a result of the site plan process that they're going through, and forestry typically reviews that application and secures what they need through site plan. We can confirm through forestry if you wish.
Guys, we're losing our feed in 20 minutes. We got to finish. Correct? You would have told me that sooner, but. Let's try to finish up. So you have the answer to that, because as far as we know, there's no forestry condition before us currently. Is that correct?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Does anyone have any other questions for either the applicant or staff or the neighbors, or are we ready for a motion?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I'm strongly influenced by the fact that if this proposed day nursery were to be accommodated in a single building, it would be permitted by the zoning bylaw. And the only reason that this variance is needed is because the proponent wishes to demolish 2 houses and put a day nursery into a single new building. So I believe that this proposal is satisfies the general intent of the zoning bylaw. It does satisfy the official plan, which speaks directly to this kind of use. And I am content to recommend approval subject to, on the basis that the proposal meets the 4 tests under the Planning Act, in my opinion, subject to a condition of the Transportation Department, which, Lorelei, I don't know if you're familiar with it or not. I'm just going to try and pull it up and summarize it for you. It has to do with some reconfiguring in your parking lot. It was dated January 5th, 2021. Is this ringing any bells? Lorelei?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we have seen that letter.
Okay, so are you okay if we impose that condition to submit to submit a revised site plan in order to enable passenger vehicles with reversing from parking space 12, et cetera?
We think it would be better addressed through the site plan application, sir, from the point of view that doing what traffic is requesting actually then moves the parking lot slightly into a tree protection zone that we were trying to retain. So
yes, I believe that is their intent. It would be part of the site plan control process, and it would require a revised site plan as part of that process to address those concerns.
Yes, and I'm content to deal with it through site plan, sir.
Okay, then that would be my motion. Approval, subject to the conditions of the planning department set out in their memo dated January 5th, 2021.
Okay. We have a seconder for Mr. Taylor's motion. If you don't, if I have to keep waiting, so if you want to say no, you're not, let me know if you're not willing to, if it's just a time delay, I'm not sure if there's a, or if you're not, you do not wish to second that motion, because our YouTube is running out.
I'm prepared to second the motion.
You are? Okay. So the motion is seconded. All in favor? Okay, the motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Okay, we have 2 more applications. The next one is item 33, 47 Burnhamthorpe Park Boulevard. This is the one that we have the urban forestry condition number 2. And this is a note, we have 1 speaker, Mr. Flynn, on this application, which was deferred from the December 3rd hearing, which was our last hearing, actually. Hold on, I can't get this to open. Okay, this is an application to construct a 2-story front west side addition, which will include an extension of the existing garage, a 1-story west side addition above the existing garage, a 1-story rear addition, a new covered front porch. There are 2 variances. We have a cover letter and from Mr. Flynn. We have a previous decision on the property, which is refusal in July 2020. We have the counselor weighing in on November 23rd, advising there's no objection. I guess that was at the before the first hearing back in December. And we have urban forestry number 2. Transportation has no objection. And planning is, I think, requesting revision or refusal of variance number 1. I believe that was last time. I don't know if that's still in effect. I don't know if they've retracted that, Mr. Secretary Treasurer. When I was reviewing this, it looks like they wanted a refusal of variance 1. That was the last time, and I didn't see any retraction.
There is a planning email from December 29th, Mr. Chair.
Okay.
And it states that there.
Oh, please note my staff report from November 20 still stands.
Yes, sir.
So in that that they were looking to refuse the west side yard setback. There's only 2 variances. They want the west side yard setback refused, variance number 1.
We should refuse them all.
Which means all they would be giving you is the parking space width. So, Mr. Flynn, that's where we're at. Good place to bring you in. So,
all right, thank you, sir.
Still wants to refuse your setback, and you advise what's happened since December when this was deferred.
It was deferred because there was an error in the notice.
Okay.
Not to change any of the drawings.
Okay.
Or request. So what is happening here? This is obviously the second application regarding this property in the last year.
Yep.
So the proposed addition was redesigned to more, what's the word I want to, cooperate isn't the right word here, to fit in with the existing configuration of the house. So if you've looked at the survey and or the site plan, you will have noted that there's a notch on the west side. So this has been designed into that notch, and it actually increases the side yard setback as it moves forward towards front of the property. So there's 2 things here. There's a second floor addition, well, there's 3, and the rear deck, and the addition to the garage. Now, if you look at the garage front and rear view, you'll notice an interesting feature here. There's a front garage door and a rear garage door. This relates to the very tight side yard setback that exists today. So it allows vehicles and or bobcats or whatever you need to move through the garage into the backyard, which actually was originally a suggestion of TRCA, so that we could maintain the slope, et cetera, et cetera. So the first time this application was brought, the neighbor at number 49 had an objection, and he was concerned with water in his basement flooding through the foundation wall, et cetera, et cetera. We've dealt with that concern, and we've agreed to waterproof that corner of the house and all the way back along that side. The issue with planning wasn't that they didn't want an addition, they didn't want it on this side. They suggested to us that we redesign so that we put the addition on the other side, on the east side, and if you look at the plans, you'll see that there is no opportunity to do that because the garage is on the west side. So what this proposal does is it accomplishes a real garage. The existing thing is more of a, I don't want to call it a shed because it's attached, but it's not much better than a shed. You can never park a car in it. And what this does is it creates a real parking space in the garage and adds a small amount of space to the second floor, which makes the utility of the second floor much better for the homeowner. The continuation of the existing side yard setback in that rear corner up into the sky is what was bothering planning. But it really has no negative impact, and even the neighbor agrees that there is no negative impact. So we have 5 letters of support. We have the councilor's support, although he's not quite correct about planning not being opposed. But I don't see that the planning objection has any validity to it, and it's just something that they do. It's not happy about that, so I'm going to suggest you change the whole design of the house. Well, it's an existing house, so we have to go with the configuration that exists. I think that this is a very modest attempt at making it the utility of the house better, the utility of the garage better, and actually upsets no one and has no negative impact. So I would suggest that it does meet the 4 tests and that the committee approve.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for Mr. Flynn?
Just a bit of a correction from my perspective, Mr. Flynn. I was a panelist in the July proceedings on this. This application was not deferred to allow an update or corrections in the notice. It was refused by a majority decision that the west side yard was inadequate. I remember it
that
distinctly.
was July, and then I think he did bring a fresh application that was deferred in December. So he did acknowledge that he was refused in July. And then he brought a fresh application.
Okay, sorry.
That one was deferred.
I missed your second of.
Yeah.
I forgot that you're a multi applicant guy.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. Yeah, so it was refused originally when it was first brought. I did not represent that application. This one is a much more subtle application and has good utility, no negative impact, and I think, regardless of planning's comment, that it's the only real appropriate thing you can do with this house if you wanted to add that kind of use of the garage and, utility on the second floor. So I think it's a very good application, personally. And, they've actually expanded or maintained the side yard setback in the front of the house. So it's actually legal at the front corner at 1.2 meters. And the house is very well in keeping with the neighborhood. The configuration of the house or the siting of the house on the lot is very similar to other lots or other homes on this street. It's a really eclectic street. Everything is different from one to the next. So I don't think it has any problems with being in character. And actually, the addition creates a more in character situation from my perspective. The house on the other side at 45 actually has the same difficulties. It's kind of skewed on the lot, and the rear corner of that house has next to no setback from the side lot line. So it's I'm not sure who did the subdivision design on this one, but maybe they were drinking or something. I don't know, but it's a little screwed up all the way around, all the way along the street. So I think it's well in character with the neighborhood, and I think it's going to be a nice project. It'll have a nice result, and it actually creates a situation for access to the rear yard that doesn't exist now. So I think it would be appropriate and in keeping with the 4 tests.
Thank you, Mr. Flynn. Any other questions for Mr. Flynn, or is someone ready to bring a motion? And TRCA, I believe, is okay at this point. Okay, thank you. We have a seconder for Mr. Taylor's motion.
I second that.
Thank you, Ms. Ruddick. All in favor? Okay, you have unanimous approval. Thank you, Mr. Flynn. Have a good evening.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members. You too.
Okay, let's see if we can squeeze in the last application before our time runs out. Item 3440, Pritchard. We have one speaker, Jack Dugan. And just trying to get my computer to enlarge this. It's an application to construct a 2-story front addition to the Buddhist Center, and there's 3 variances. There's a cover letter, and that's all we have. I don't believe there's any conditions. Just the cover letter. So it's an existing situation. They want a small two-story addition at the front entrance, increase the size of the entry vestibule. 454 square feet, 14.9%. Hello, Mr. Dugan.
Mr. Dugan is unmuted.
Hello, sir. Mr. Dugan?
Did you not speak to this gentleman? Didn't he say he wanted to request deferral?
Well, if he's not here, there's only...
I'm sorry, you'll have to stick around all day.
He's probably not.
I hear somebody talking in the background. I'm not sure. Is maybe on another call?
No, I think that's just us. But Mr. Taylor is right. The applicant did say that he was requesting a deferral.
Okay, well, maybe he figured he didn't have to sit around on the phone for 5 hours then if he was doing that, so. So what do you suggest we do? Just defer it?
I'm prepared to make a motion to defer it if that's allowed.
As he said, yeah. There doesn't seem to be any big concern, but if he's not here and he said he mentioned earlier he needed a deferral, he was going to ask for a deferral, and
He definitely did. I remember that
okay.
now. Yeah.
So motion from Sophia Ruddick to defer, seconder for that motion.
Danny Bellissimo seconds the motion.
Okay, all in favor, matter is deferred. And having said that, we've finished the agenda, and so we stand adjourned. Meeting ends 5:36. Okay.
Thanks. Good evening, everybody.